Good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started here. We got a lot of student recognitions tonight. Awesome to see all the students in attendance tonight. We're going to try to get going quickly so we can recognize them and let them get back to homework and all their good stuff tonight. So first we need to return to open session. Do I have a motion to return to open session?
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Franklin and a second by Dr. Guitry, I believe. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Yes. Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were intended and identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered?
So moved.
Second.
And we have a motion by Ms. Purcell and I think a second by Ms. Franklin. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Yes. Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to readmit student A?
Second.
You have a motion by Ms. Franklin and a second by Ms. Bond. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, next we'll get into our honors, awards, recognitions. We'll start off with our student representatives tonight with our MCPS mission and belief statements. Student representatives are Alexandra Jobst from Auburn High School and Alicia Wang from Blacksburg High School. Will you please read our mission and belief statements?
Our mission is MCPS is an innovative educational community. We value diversity and we are committed to equity and inclusion.
MCPS empowers learners to realize success in an ever-changing global society through collaboration with communities, families, staff, and students. MCPS provides a safe, engaging learning environment and intentional exposure to positive social, emotional, and academic experiences.
Our beliefs. All students can learn in order to pursue their dreams. Schools are safe places of joy, wonder, and creativity. Every person deserves to be loved, valued, and respected. Kindness is an essential skill of a responsible, productive community member. The diversity of our community is one of our greatest strengths.
All people deserve equitable access to opportunities and resources. Every child deserves an advocate. Honoring the voices of students and other stakeholders strengthens the school community. Open communication and feedback are vital to our growth. Learning and teaching are collective efforts that begin at birth and involve the entire community. Relationship building and high expectations are foundational to student success.
Okay, great. Thank you both. Our next item of business is the student representative reports. Alexandra, do you have a report from Auburn High School?
I do. Our Auburn High School men's basketball team plays for the state championship at 8 p.m. Thursday night. The AHS MAC team won multiple matches this season, however they did not make it to the finals. Our indoor track team made strong showings at the state championship at Liberty University. All athletes enjoyed the meet, some beat and even set new school records. AHS spring sports have started and many look forward to a good season. Our health and medical classes took a field trip to the cadaver lab at VCOM today, March 5th. Many students thought it was a neat experience and very helpful when learning about the human body. Our seniors are getting ready for their graduation on May 18th at 2:30 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Alicia, do you have a report from Blacksburg High School?
As always, Blacksburg High School has been going very strong. These past 2 months, we've seen wonderful achievements from students in various areas. In terms of sports, we've had many wins from our athletes. The wrestling team performed well at states, with Braden Henderson being the 132-pound Class 4 state champion. The boys swim and dive team won the state championship, with Theo Villanueva being the individual state champion, and the girls swim and dive team placed third statewide, with Peyton Sigtrigson being the individual state champion. The girls lacrosse team won against Ronald Reagan High School in North Carolina impressively. The boys indoor track team won 6th place at the state meet, and the girls indoor track team won the Class 4 runner-up. Furthermore, the girls 4x800 relay team was the Class 4 state champion. Additionally, many individual records for indoor track were shattered by our athletes. Our student artists also made noteworthy achievements. Several pieces of 2D and 3D art created by BHS students were selected for the Radford High School Art Show in February. Additionally, BHS student Ella Prevet designed an awesome Commit to Graduate t-shirt for all of MCPS. Senior-directed one-acts were performed in late February, receiving a vast audience and performing wonderfully in all 3 showings. The BHS band had pre-assessment this past Thursday and performed amazingly. They will be attending a formal band assessment on March 7th. Moving on to the academic sphere, our Scholastic Bowl team won Class 4 state champions at the Jamestown tournament. Science Olympiad excelled as well, with at least one team placing in every single event and 13 overall first places, as well as being first place overall. BHS will be going to the State Science Olympiad tournament at UVA for the 7th year in a row on April 6th. This past weekend, our student research team participated in the Highlands Regional Science Fair at Radford University. The researchers won 16 special awards in total. 9 students placed top 3 in their respective category, with 6 of these being first place, and 7 students were chosen to be delegates to the Virginia Science and Engineering Fair. Furthermore, both grand awards at the Highlands event were scooped up by BHS students. Ethan Ryrie and Xavier Guidry will be representing us at the International Fair. BHS also hosted the first Chesapeake robotics competition this past weekend, seeing attendance from 25 different teams. Also, BHS's DECA team was very successful at the Virginia Beach Conference, with a number of students winning in their topic and qualifying for the national conference in Anaheim. All 5 of our MAC teams will be going to Super MAC on March 7th after finishing first or second in the regional tournament and finishing the season with an impressive 39-1 combined overall record. Last but not least, we celebrated Black History Month with a morning announcement about an achievement by a well-known African-American figure each day of February, brought to us by our Black Student Awareness Club. Thank you for listening.
Great, thank you, Lishu. All right, next up, Adam Simpson will recognize the Blacksburg Middle School Band.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Bregan and student reps. It's my pleasure to recognize Blacksburg Middle School band members this evening. The 8th grade BMS band provided the beautiful music that you heard prior to tonight's evening. Great job, everybody. There's also a group of 6th through 8th grade students that we will be recognizing this evening for their recent accomplishments. Back in January of 2024, BMS band students competed in all district auditions at Salem High School. There were a total of 490 auditioning students from 45 middle schools and 25 school divisions. Blacksburg Middle School had 41 students qualify as all district bands. The 41 students led District 6. The next closest school had 23 students. This is the 8th consecutive year that BMS has led District 6 in placing students into the all-district bands. The Virginia Band and Orchestra Association's District 6 is a very large district that spans from Radford, Montgomery, and Floyd counties, north through Roanoke, Botetourt County to Allegheny, east to Lynchburg, Campbell, and Halifax counties, and south to Danville, Henry, and Patrick. I will now invite BMS Band Director Harry Farmer and Principal Dr. Rob Johnson up to tell us more about these amazing student musicians.
It's an honor to be here today. I do appreciate you letting us play for you today. And I would like to go ahead and recognize the 41 students that did place in all district band. We'll line up this way first and come down through here, okay? All right, on flute, we have Fiona Hicks. Ellen Nichols, Emily Katz. On oboe, we had Nicola Harrell, who was #1 in the district for the second year in a row. Raven Williams also. On clarinet, we had Dennis Zhao. He finished in the top 3 all 3 years he's been in middle school, which is very, very cool. Moses Park, Theta Back, Latian Zhao, Sam Nupp, Elijah RF, Danielle Spoon, Arthur Perkin, Nesia Archibald, and Maria Westcott. On bass clarinet, we had Liam Drake. On alto saxophone, we had Max Saba and Henry Bingley. On tenor saxophone, we had Alice Gorlick and Norik Pulla. On trumpet, we had Maggie Lowe, Soren Olson, Nolan Hall, David Hicks, Andrew Brantley, Evan Gentry, and Bebo Himes. On French horn, Nora Hirschler, Reed Lawrence, who was the only 6th grader in the district that made it, Jonah Wilsey, Dunya Sharef, Lily Seitz. On trombone, Sienna Marr, Andrew Myers, and Leela Priest. On baritone, Matthew Cole and Jacob Butts. On tuba, Sam Shrestha, who led the district one more time. He finished first again 2 years in a row on tuba. And Matthew Thorseth. And then last but not least, percussion, Jonas Schubert and Henry Hibbard. This is your Blacksburg Middle School students who made all-district band. Just go ahead and take it. We'll figure it out later. We'll take it. And what they're receiving is a certificate they got at that event, so. And they're probably going to want a picture of us. You want a picture of it? Okay. All right, guys, let's try to move this way. Let's make a couple rows. Okay. Come on, come on, come on. Don't be shy. They got a meeting to do. Come on. Move quicker. Thanks. Okay, fill in space. Tall people in the back. Do our best. Okay, come on, come on. Yes, come on, come this way, come this way. Come this way, this way.
I'd like to take a second and thank Blacksburg Middle School Band for coming tonight, because wow, how great you guys were. And, you know, people talk all the time about all the bad things that happen in our schools, and this is a wonderful example of the good things that sometimes we forget, and all the different students that we'll see here tonight. So thank you guys. You look professional, you sounded professional, and more wonderful, great things yet to come to you, I'm sure.
Okay, great. Next up, Mark Husband will begin our recognition of the VHSL Fall 2023 Athletic State Champions.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Bragan. We are excited to recognize 3 MCPS teams that won VHSL Athletic State Championships during the fall 2003 season. To introduce the Auburn High School girls volleyball team is AHS Principal David Hurd, and after him, to introduce the Blacksburg High School golf team and boys cross country team is Interim Principal Guyleen Wood-Setzer. Thank you.
Thank you. I will be brief. Mr. Domini, our athletic director, will speak to you in more detail about the volleyball team. The Auburn High School volleyball team has been the mark of excellence for a long time. They've won 8 state championships, 8 of the last 11 state championships. So while this is a normal occurrence for our volleyball team, it is always special. And I would like to bring Mr. Domini up along with the team to introduce this group of young ladies.
It's good to be here again. In the interest of brevity, I have limited my comments to 37 pages. It's a simple statement of fact when it's said that a 4-time consecutive state championship team will have a target on their back. With the loss of key players from the 2022 state championship team, there were doubts about the 2023 Auburn Eagle volleyball team. Still, it's hard to make a short list of Class 1 likely state champions without having Auburn on it. The 2023 version of the Eagles knew they needed to grow to keep their streak going, and they did that quickly. The progress showed as the team started their season, winning 10 of their first 11 matches before dropping the championship game of the Auburn tournament to state power Rappahannock. It became apparent early on that the major hurdle this season would be Giles High School, which defeated the Eagles twice in the regular season. Entering the playoffs with a 20-3 record, Auburn easily dispatched Fort Chiswell and Bland County to reach the finals and Giles again. A 3-1 victory in the district tournament championship showed the progress this team had made to that point. In region play, the Eagles swept Parry McClure and Grayson County before facing Giles in the region final and falling to them again 3-2. State playoffs began with a challenging Northwood team on their own floor, but Auburn swept them aside 3-0. The state semifinals brought a 5th contest against Giles. Auburn defeated the Spartans for the 2nd time this season on their own floor to advance to the state championship. Facing Alta Vista in the final, Auburn was clearly the better team and rolled to a 3-1 win for their 5th consecutive state title. Tonight, I'd like to introduce some members of the state championship team. Many of the team members are on their way back from a softball scrimmage this evening. Team manager Josie A.G. Helms, players Jocelyn Lucas, Johnny Gaynor, Brielle Underwood, Ava Garland, Kristen Pack, J.C. Morrow, Stacy Lewis, Megan Ernest, Kaylee Ramratten, Gretchen Surface, Leah Wimmer, Ava Tucker, assistant coaches Leah Ernest, Danielle Randall, Ben Kratz, and head coach Sherry Millirons.
Good evening. It is a great pleasure to stand before you to introduce the state champions in our golf team, if you will come forward, and our coach, Rick Maddox. There have been 8 total state champions under Coach Maddox, and this is our 3rd in the row. Coach Maddox, would you like to introduce the team?
I will. I'll be much shorter than the play-by-play that we just got. But we had a very great year, great group of kids. we set a record for Blacksburg High School, 15 under at the region. And then at the state tournament, we shot 6 under, which was the lowest score of any team that played in Virginia this year. We're currently ranked number 2 in the country for high school teams. Now, before anybody gets real excited about that, there's a lot of magnet schools that are going to be playing in the spring, and we may drop a little bit, but still, we got a great group of young folks on this team. Very fortunate to be their coach, and we want to thank y'all for recognizing us tonight. Who we've got here? We've got Major Ewing, Jack Skinner, Jake Albert, Pierce Campbell, Garrett Amelink, Connor Catterson, and Cameron Sharp. We also have Li Shu Wang sitting over here, who was also our only female player this year. But great group of folks, and we hope to continue the success of the Blacksburg Golf Program. So again, thanks to Montgomery County for all the support that you give us. Hold on, 10 minutes.
We'll ask Coach Howard and the state boys cross-country team to come forward, please. Once again, it is a great pleasure to introduce them to you all. I've seen these young men and the women running in the snow, well, not the snow, but like the rain and the cold and all this stuff that I would not be doing. But we are very proud of them and the fact that they brought home the state and that they did so well. Coach Howard, you want to come forward?
So thank you guys for having me and having our team here tonight. I just want to say what an honor it is to be here with the golf team and the Auburn volleyball team. It's a testament to the athletes' hard work that they put in and day out to make it to this level. And these guys right here are absolutely the pinnacle of hard work. It was about this time last year that we stood up here and had, after our state championship last year, and I got to brag about how much work they put in. And these guys ran since the beginning of June. They ran 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, until the end of November. And that's a long, long season. And sometimes they're like, Coach, do we need to work this much to get to this level? And I'm like, yes, I promise. It'll work out. And it typically does at the end of every season. But these guys put in so much work. I want to highlight the guys we have here. So we have Xander Krish, Harrison Whitfield, who is our lone senior and team leader. He's an awesome team leader. We have Henry Strom, who was all-state at the state meet. He actually led our team for the majority of the season. He ran a 15:46 5K and placed 7th at the state meet. He was all-state. Some people, it is a big accomplishment for a runner when they break 5 minutes in the mile for the first time. That is a huge accomplishment. Henry was able to do that 3.1 times in a row in a race, which is awesome. And then we have Ben Bailey, who's a sophomore who really stepped up at the region and state meet. Last year we had a stellar team. We had the best team in the entire state of Virginia across all classifications. We had the state champion. He actually won the Southeast region, which is 13 states. But we lost 4 of our top 7 guys. And you can run 7 in a meet. We lost 4 of our top 7 guys, including the top 3 guys. And the guys this year were just like, we want to be even better than they were. At the state meet this year, they had a faster team average than we had last year, and they had a better point score than we had last year. They were a better team than last year when a lot of the state was raving about them. They were voted again the best team in the state across all classifications. And so I said this last year, I'll say it again, you are looking at the best runners in the state of Virginia. And that is no easy accomplishment. They worked very hard to get to where they are. They worked hard alongside their girls. Our girls got third in the state, and they actually did way better than they did last year when they won. So it is with our whole combined team that we have gotten to this point, and I'm just so thankful for them. Also want to thank our other coaches, Chad Cox, Mac Bradbury, and Marcy Bradbury, who are there every single day. We have a great coaching staff, and we're thankful to have about 80 kids on the cross-country team at Blacksburg High School. So they just actually got done with the indoor state meet, so they are in the rebuilding phase to take on outdoor track. So thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. Thank you all for coming tonight. Congratulations on all that recognition. Okay, next up we have our recognition of the Support Staff Employees of the Year. Dr. Thomas Brewster, Dr. Amanda Widener, and Dr. Thomas Bell, Christiansburg Rotary Club President, will recognize the nominees for the 2024-2025 Support Staff Employees of the Year.
Good evening, Chairman Hudson, members of the board, and Dr. Bragan. I'm delighted to stand before you tonight to honor our Support Staff Employees of the Year. Montgomery County deeply appreciates the dedication and efforts of our support staff employees, our administrative assistants, school nurses, custodians, paraprofessionals, facility workers, technology staff, bus drivers, and school nutrition employees are all crucial to our school division's ability to meet the needs and interests of our students. The functionality of our school division hinges on the contributions of these individuals. In recognition of their significant contributions, Montgomery County annually honors exemplary support staff employees, selecting one individual as the Support Staff Employee of the Year. This individual represents the entire school division and assumes the title for the following year, paralleling the process for Teacher of the Year. Nominees for this award are employees who consistently exhibit leadership, foster collaborative relationships with students, colleagues, and the community, and make exceptional contributions to the school division. This year, 23 support staff employees were nominated by a school principal or director. It is with great pleasure that I now announce our nominees for Support Staff Employee of the Year. Joining me is Dr. Amanda Widener, our Director of Human Resources, and Thomas Bell, President of the Christiansburg-Blacksburg Rotary Club. On behalf of the Rotary Club, Mr. Bell will present a $1,000 check to our School Division Employee of the Year. Although many of our support staff employees are here tonight, some were unable to attend due to family commitments or personal illness. To those who are present, when I call your name, please come forward to receive your certificate and a small token of our appreciation. If you have brought guests who wish to take photographs, they are welcome to come forward for that purpose. Our first is Kelly Adams, paraprofessional, Christiansburg Elementary School. Michelle Altizer, Recess Lunch Aide, Auburn Elementary School. Angie Amos, nurse, Blacksburg High School. Beth Conley, School Testing Coordinator, Christiansburg High School, Martha Jolene Dalton, paraprofessional, Bellevue Elementary School. Judith Michelle Gather Cole, paraprofessional, Auburn Middle School. Mason Hall, IT Technician, Technology. Doris Kane, paraprofessional, Margaret Beeks Elementary School. Brian Light, Head Custodian, Harding Avenue Elementary School. Andrika McConnell, Lunch Recess Aide, Christiansburg Primary School. Kara Lynch, paraprofessional, East Montgomery Elementary School. Tracy Martin, nurse, East Montgomery High School. Llewellyn Myers, paraprofessional, Gilbert Linkus Elementary School. James Norman, bus driver, Price Fork Elementary School and Transportation. Sally Petrov Poland, clerical registrar aide, Kips Elementary School. Kim Simpson, school bus driver, trainer, transportation. Tammy Snodgrass, bookkeeper, Blacksburg Middle School. Connie Stevens, administrative assistant, SPAD Central Office. Rebecca Strausbaugh, paraprofessional, Christiansburg Middle School. Connie Thompson, paraprofessional, Falling Branch Elementary School. Janice Wildman, paraprofessional, Auburn High School. Chelsea Wooten, attendance clerk, registrar, Charlesville Middle School. It is now my honor to announce the Montgomery County Public School Support Staff Employee of the Year for 2024-2025. With great enthusiasm, we recognize Helen Millie McPherson as our esteemed awardee. This honor is a testament to her outstanding contributions to Montgomery County Public School, a recognition she truly deserves. Millie McPherson, a dedicated Montgomery County Public Schools employee for nearly 2 decades, has been a key figure in the purchasing warehouse department, especially noted for her roles as a warehouse worker, administrative assistant, and for nearly 10 years a purchasing specialist. Millie exemplifies dedication and efficiency in managing purchasing paperwork, assisting bookkeepers, collaborating with directors, principals, and vendors on purchasing matters, and meticulously reconciling credit card statements each month. Renowned for her diligence, team spirit, and unfailing positive attitude, Millie has significantly contributed to the department's success, consistently going above and beyond to ensure smooth operations and stepping in during emergencies to prevent any disruptions. A recent survey highlighted her exceptional service and positive impact, with colleagues praising her approachability, helpfulness, and upbeat presence. Congratulations to Millie McPherson. We are thankful for her dedication to our school division and congratulate her as the Montgomery County Public Schools Support Staff Employee of the Year. At this time, we'd like to recognize Millie for this award and this honor. And of course, Dr. Bell will present her a check on behalf of the Christiansburg-Blacksburg Rotary Club, and he probably already has. Thank you, and congratulations to all our nominees and our winner this evening.
Dr. Bragan likes to race me up the back hall over there, so I gotta catch my breath for a minute.
I'll let you win.
All right, next up, we have the recognition of the second cohort of MCPS AMPS program graduates. Dr. Jonathan Schultz will recognize the second cohort of the MCPS AMPS program graduates.
Good evening, Dr. Bragan and members of the board. I'm pleased to be here tonight to present for your recognition the members of our second cohort of graduates from the MCPS Alternative Model for Professional Studies program. Our program was first approved by the VDOE in 2019. It provides provisionally licensed teachers with job-embedded professional learning experiences focused on the most important things that they need to know to survive those first couple years of being a teacher. Teachers who complete the 30-month AMPS program meet the professional studies requirements for a full Virginia teaching license, equivalent to up to 6 college courses. AMPS was the first program of its kind in Virginia, and we are proud to recognize another amazing cohort of graduates. Tonight we have with us Evan Gray, 6th grade science at Auburn Middle School. Unable to be with us here tonight is Emily Groover, who teaches theater arts at Blacksburg High School. Cameron Harris Gilliam, who teaches marketing at Christiansburg High School. So now we're up to 6 MCPS teachers who have completed the AMPS program. We have another 20 currently enrolled in the program. And later this spring, we expect to be invited in front of the State Board of Education to seek the next level of approval, which would certify the program for 7 years. And we would be the first division in the state to receive that. So you guys are great. Thank you.
Great. Next up, Adam Simpson will start our presentation for Seniors of the Month.
Good evening. A very special highlight of our board meeting is the recognition of an outstanding senior from each of our 4 high schools. Photos and leadership profiles will be displayed on the screen during this presentation and will also be on display in the lobby of the central office. Our presentation format provides a snapshot of each senior, along with a quote from the teacher or administrator who nominated them for this recognition. Each principal will come forward to recognize their Senior of the Month in the following order, starting with Mr. David Hurd, principal of Auburn High School, followed by Ms. Woodsetzer, acting principal of Blacksburg High School, Mr. Gwynn, principal of Christiansburg High School, and Mr. Lewis, principal of Eastern Montgomery High School. Mr. Hurd.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Bragan, Ms. Osborne. At this point, I would like to ask Nick Millarns and his family to come join us at the podium. The March Senior of the Month for Auburn High School is Nick Millarns. Nick is an upstanding member of the Auburn community and excels both academically, athletically, and as a student leader. He's the SGA president, the Beta Club vice president, a member of the National Honor Society, a member of the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society. He is currently working toward his associate's degree, has won the Rotary Club for Excellence, and is captain of the basketball team that will look for their state championship on Thursday night in Richmond, as he currently stands beside his coach. Nick's resume is long. I need to take a breath at this point. Nick has been the Mountain Empire District Player of the Year in basketball, first team All-State while finding time to compile a 4.34 GPA without a B on his transcript. He also qualified for the indoor state track meet, runs outdoor track, and is a member of the soccer team. Nick plans to attend the University of Virginia to major in kinesiology to prepare for a career in physical therapy. A staff member remarked that Nick is an excellent role model for his peers at Auburn High School. He's the epitome of a student athlete in that he works very hard and strives for excellence in all that he does. He's not just a great basketball player, but a great leader, and it shows on and off the court. Nick demonstrates an ability to stay calm under pressure and shows great maturity. While he's a great student on his own, he's also a leader in the classroom and willing to work with others for the greater good. All these traits will serve him well into adulthood. We look forward to watching Nick and what he can achieve in his future. Thank you.
Good evening. It is a pleasure to stand before you one more time. At this time, I would ask for Ahmet Kutkut and his family to come forward, please. Ahmed is everything one could ask for a student and community member. He is inquisitive, hardworking, and thorough. He is friendly, kind, and helpful to any other person he comes in contact with during the day. While his postgraduate goals presently include a degree in computer engineering or science and may involve applications in medicine or health, he pushes himself to do the best in all of his courses. Ahmed extracurricular activities look a little different than many other students, but make him an even more exemplary role model for any student of faith, or indeed any student. Ahmed has spent countless hours supporting his peers who are also called to his faith. He has been leading the Sunday school and youth group at the local mosque and was instrumental in creating an active Muslim Students Association and working with the administration to create an opportunity for students who need to pray during the school day, to be able to do so in a private setting with dignity. But his influence at BHS has gone far beyond the other Muslim students. Everyone who has come in contact with Ahmed has been touched by his sincere compassion, tolerance, and respect, and is better for it. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Bragan, and student representatives. Thank you for this opportunity to highlight one of our senior students this evening. It is my pleasure to introduce the March Senior of the Month for Christiansburg High School as Mr. Kenneth Connor. I would like to ask Kenneth and his family to please come forward at this time. Especially Nana. When asking one of his teachers to describe Kenneth, they said, "Kenneth is one of the most responsible and reliable students I have had in my class. He has been instrumental in the band running as smoothly as it does by assisting me in a variety of ways that include rewriting parts, setting up for rehearsals each day, managing the music library, and assisting with keeping the band room clean. Kenneth is often found handling additional responsibilities before he is even asked. He is always willing to put other students before himself and assist whenever needed. Kenneth is a natural-born leader and knows how to encourage others towards a common goal. He has a true dedication to the performing arts, and his lasting contributions to these programs at CHS have enriched classmates, the faculty, and audiences alike. He is driven and focused to be an example for other students and wants nothing more than to see his fellow classmates succeed. Kenneth's future plans are to attend Radford University and major in biomedical sciences. After college, Kenneth plans to attend medical school to become a pediatric endocrinologist. Congratulations, Kenneth.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Bragan. It is my pleasure to represent Eastern Montgomery High School in recognizing our March Senior of the Month, Haley Akers. Haley's here with her family, and I'd like to ask them to come forward at this time. An extra thanks to her sister Macy for representing at Mustang Pride this evening. Haley, one of Haley's teachers, Emily Castle, provided a statement highlighting Haley's outstanding qualities and accomplishments, and I'd like to take a moment to read it. Haley Akers is an exemplary student, a dedicated athlete, and an overall positive influence on our school community. Haley is kind to others and always willing to lend a helping hand when it is needed. She is self-motivated and dedicated to the betterment of herself and of the community she is part of. Though she is involved in multiple clubs, plays on various sports teams, and is enrolled in rigorous classes, Haley gives her best effort in everything she does. I have no doubt that Haley will succeed in her future endeavors as she is passionate and hardworking.
It has been a pleasure to share a passion for agriculture with Haley during my time as her teacher over the past 4 years. I can always count on Haley to be an eager participant in whatever task I throw her way, from potting baby plants in the greenhouse to completing a horse handling obstacle course or even wrangling cats in our small animal care class. We are thankful to have Haley as a member of our EMHS school community. Congratulations to Haley Akers.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We've recognized a lot of amazing people tonight. The board's going to take a 10-minute break to thank our honorees for being here tonight. You ready? All right, everyone, we'll get back at it here. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Osborne will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Please state your name and the area of the county you live in. The first speaker is William Kirschbaum, and next up after them is Gracie Walker. Do we have William? Okay. Move on to Gracie Walker. And after Gracie is Naveed Jansen.
Oh. Hello. Oh, whoa. Hello, my name is Gracie Walker. This is Addison Long. We are from Shawsville Middle School. I would like to thank you very much for your time today. We all know that water is important, but having a clean water source is just as important. Do you know what is on the water fountains at your schools? Are they clean? Do you know the answer? We all went through a global pandemic, so we should know how clean our water fountains are, right? If you don't know the answer to that question, we are here to answer it for you. Our water fountains are breeding grounds for bacteria. This here is a swab of the spout from the water fountain in the tech hall at Shawsville Middle School. These black dots are mold and the white dots are bacteria. Would you like to drink from this water fountain? Because I know I don't. This here is a swab of the button that is pressed when using a water fountain. This swab is from the cafeteria at Shawsville Middle School. I personally do not want to touch that. We also took samples of the other fountains, and the results were just as disgusting. If you would like to see the samples, we are more than happy to show them to you. So how can we make getting water a safer experience? Our solution to this problem is to install automatic water bottle filling stations in our schools. These dispensers are both a safer option and very convenient. Getting these filling stations will encourage students and staff to drink more water throughout the day. This means students would be able to stay on task and be more focused. Hydration is a key element to academic success. Also, getting filling stations will help cut down the amount of single-use plastic bottles by giving students the chance to use refillable water bottles. Schools already produce an enormous amount of waste, and if there is a way to eliminate some of that waste, it would help the environment. We hope that you consider our idea, and thank you again for your time.
Okay, thank you, Gracie. Next up is Naveed Jansen, followed by Deborah Olson.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Naveed Jansen. I'm from Blacksburg High School, and I stand before you today to address a critical issue that affects the safety and well-being of the children of this community: responsible gun storage. As you may know, guns are the leading cause of death in American children and teens, and their impact on our schools and communities cannot be understated. A crucial step we can take to prevent tragic incidents involving firearms is to ensure that guns are stored safely and securely in households where children are present. Research has shown that a significant number of gun-related incidents involving children occur due to easy access to unsecured firearms in their own homes or the homes of relatives and friends. By implementing a policy that requires a school administration to notify parents about their legal responsibility to safely store firearms in households with children, we can help in the prevention of gun-related losses and needless atrocities in our community. As a BHS student, I'd like to make it very clear that students feel the stress, anxiety, and pain of gun-related tragedies just as much as adults. I personally know people who have had connections with the victim of the recent murder-suicide in our community, and let me tell you, it is not something easy to live with. Losses like that take a severe toll on the collective student mental health of MCPS. Let's make sure that never happens again. I therefore urge the school board to pass a resolution that requires the administration to annually notify parents of their legal responsibility to safely store any firearm in the household and the risks of improperly stored firearms. This crucial yet simple step can potentially save lives and create a safer environment for the children in this community to learn and grow. I urge us to come together as a community to prioritize the safety and well-being of children above all else. By taking proactive measures to promote safe gun storage, we are not only filling our responsibility as responsible adults, but we are also sending a powerful message that says we value the lives of children above all else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Naveed. Next up is Deborah Olson, followed by John Phillips.
Hi, my name is Deborah Olson. I'm from Blacksburg. I'm here to add my voice to those who ask the school board to proactively work to save children's lives by helping parents better understand how to store their firearms safely at home, in the car, and in any setting where children live and play. The sheer number of firearms in our county is astonishing. For example, we have 9,000 concealed carry permits in Montgomery. With this many guns, it is not just possible, but probable that gun accidents, injuries, and fatalities will occur, with children and teens among the likely victims. Notifying parents about safe storage issues is a low-cost, efficient way to reach out to well-meaning parents and help them do their best for their children and the safety of our schools. Not all parents will heed the advice given, and more will need to be done to help ensure that schools are safe places. But it is an important first step and opens the door to greater dialogue, greater trust and understanding around the goal we all share, our children's health and well-being. Before coming here, I conducted a short experiment. I entered 5-year-old brings a gun to school into Google. There was no shortage of entries, and many, many were recent. What was clear is that no geographic area, no school is immune from this danger. I have a very distinct flashbulb memory of walking up to the door of an engineering building in April 2007 and finding the handles chained shut. The event, which came to be known as the Virginia Tech Massacre, shocked the world. At that time, we would never have guessed the future would hold Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland, Uvalde, and so many more tragedies. I hope that 2024 will be the year when concerned gun owners, parents, and others work to make sure our students feel safe and are safe from senseless gun violence. Guns are part of our society. Our citizens have a Second Amendment right to bear arms, but with any right comes responsibility. And by installing this very simple notification to parents, this simple form of outreach, you provide such a useful reminder of how we can be responsible stewards of the firearms we are entitled to carry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Next up is John Phillips, followed by Caroline Mullins.
I just have a couple of sentences to add.
And just first, that I very strongly support this request that's being made to educate parents about responsibility of gun ownership. I was at Virginia Tech during the massacre, and I have a second cousin who was an engineering student who was in a class in the engineering building. He left to use the restroom, and the shooter came in and killed several students in that classroom. This is, gun violence is, there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no safety. This is something that you can't anticipate and that can devastate families and communities and so forth. And again, the key is that you guys have to be brave enough to stand up and say there are certain reasonable things that can be done. And so we request that you listen to these past speakers and to all the concerned people involved. And let's see if we can get something like this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Next up is Caroline Mullins, followed by Alinda Plout. Is Caroline here? Okay. Next up is Alinda Plout, followed by Kimberly Williamson.
Good evening. I'm Linda Plout, resident of Blacksburg, Virginia. I lost my mother to gun suicide, and my husband lost 3 colleagues and 6 students in that Tech massacre you've been reminded of. I don't think anybody expects a school board can solve all the problems of gun violence. That's why a group of us are reaching out to churches, to doctors, to the police, and to many others to enlist their support. But a large chunk of our population is in school every day. We hope that the proposed safe gun storage policy will protect not only students, but also teachers, staff, bus drivers, crossing guards, and volunteers like my husband, whom Dr. Bragan calls the notorious Mr. Ray because he spends every day in the Gilbert Lincas kindergarten class. If you get resistance from parents, you might remind them that one and maybe both parents of a Michigan shooter will do significant jail time for their son's crime. Surely the safe storage of firearms policy is an endeavor in which the school board, parents, students, and the school system itself can work together to make Montgomery County a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plout. Next up is Kimberly Williamson, followed by Joanne Price.
Kimberly Williamson, Christiansburg, Virginia. On April 4th, 2023, a brave teenager and high school student, Nick Shepard, and his 4 friends came up to this podium in front of the school board to protest the vulgar assignment and out loud reading of sexually explicit and pornographic material in their English class. Nick and his friends made the point that we are the majority. I believe they are. They are the majority. And they and many others are tired of what you all are selling. I have been absolutely appalled over the last couple of years learning just how sick the material available in the school libraries and sometimes assigned in classes can be. Hundreds of explicit and pornographic books in the libraries. And it's not about books, as some will inevitably say. It's about graphic, sexually explicit content, much that even goes beyond the pale into such things as pedophilia or normalization of child-to-child sexual abuse. As an adult, I don't want such poisonous vomit assaulting my eyes, ears, mind, and soul. As an adult, I can make that choice. However, school children, no matter what age they are, as well as their parents, often aren't allowed a choice. These students should not have this stuff forced upon their eyes, ears, minds, and souls by their school teachers or libraries. Please let kids just be kids. Protect our most precious young people from such things as we use as we used to do as a responsible society. Let them grow up into adulthood before they must contend with the world's lure to such things as pornography. Pornography will not free them, as they may think, but will instead enslave and addict them to perverted sexual desires that will in turn destroy future relationships and even whole families. Letting kids be kids and protecting them from such things should be the default rule of a responsible school district, no matter what justification a teacher, administrator, or school board member might have. There was a time when supplying sexually explicit material to children could get you arrested, and if you were a parent, it could possibly mean the removal of that child from your home. How far we have fallen. When a teacher expressing Jesus could get them fired, but sexually explicit pornography is just fine? This is not what progress looks like. To all the Nick Shepherds out there, I heard you, many of us hear you, and some are doing what we can. As for me, I stand with Nick Shepherd.
Thank you, Ms. Williamson. Next up is Joanne Price, followed by Ginny Perfader.
Joanne Price, Blacksburg, and I too stand with Nick Shepherd and his courageous friends.
Thank you, Ms. Price. And next up is Ginny Perfader, followed by Kim Bowman.
Good evening. My name is Kim Bowman. I live in Christiansburg. I'd like to address the unwanted and often unspoken effects of pornography. Its abbreviated form, porn, has almost become hip in today's modern culture. Most of you are probably not aware that there's an epidemic of porn addiction in 11 and 12-year-old boys. Porn and sex addiction is at an all-time high. I have been involved in a recovery program for more than 10 years. We help people with all types of addictions and other life issues. And I can tell you firsthand that it is a very prevalent problem in our society that no one's talking about. At least not in public. Even in circles of recovery, it's taboo to speak about it, which tells me there's a lot of shame and guilt associated with it. That's not good for the human psyche. In reality, many unexpected partakers unknowingly enter into a vicious cycle of addiction, causing guilt, shame, and failed relationships, some throughout their entire lives. Porn addiction destroys lives, and it destroys families. It breaks down trust in relationships. The very foundation of a relationship is trust. Studies show that porn use increases sexual aggression and violence. In a 2021 study, it was found that 1 out of 8 titles describes a violent sexual act. As a former victim of sexual assault and violence, and as an advocate for children, I implore you to rethink what you're doing by allowing pornography into our schools and into the precious minds of our most prized possessions, our children. Please let our children be children. Thank you. And I think I have a little bit more to say about that. I was raised in Montgomery County in foster home. I was put in 5 homes with pedophiles. My sister committed suicide because of traumatic abuse that she suffered for 16 years. And also, as far as on the gun control, I'm not for gun control. I totally agree with these people that we need to be locking our guns up. I had a 9-year-old
Thank you,
nephew
Ms. Bowman. Your time is up. Thank you.
who was killed by his baby brother with a gun.
Okay, next up is Amy Cooper, followed by Carola Haas. Amy Cooper? Okay. Next up is Carola Haas, followed by Don Upham.
Thank you. Carola Haas, Reiner, Virginia. I was mostly coming to talk today about the science textbook review, but I will just make a comment about these other issues. I assume that all the school board members understand that that student they're referring to was a stunt, that those students were not required to read. They chose that book just to be able to make a scene. So if you're not aware of that, I strongly encourage you to talk to the teacher involved, that nobody is being required to read those books that they're discussing in school. And for folks that do want to have involvement in school reading materials, I very much appreciate the fact that the school has made an opportunity that parents and community members can look at the curriculum before it's chosen. So there is a proper mechanism for doing that for people who want to be involved. Nobody's forcing anything on us. There's an opportunity as community members to be involved. I would like to ask, and it may be just my incompetence, but I would like to ask for higher visibility, which might improve some of the concerns that community members feel like they don't know what's going on. I know this year the textbook review was supposed to be advertised on the website. And again, I'm not very good at navigating websites, so it may be that I just missed it, but I never saw it anywhere posted prominently that there was a textbook review available on either the high school pages or the main page. If I did a search on the MCPS page, I did find it though, so I could find the textbook review material that way and I could look at it. But again, given my schedule, Monday was supposed to be the last day to be able to do the review. And it was the first day that I was free during the school day. Anyway, I just made it to Auburn High School to look at the books. But it turns out they only had one of the astronomy, oceanography, and physiology. They only had the anatomy and physiology textbook available, and they only had one of the 3 choices there available. So again, they were available online. It's way easier for my mind to process something as a book form. So I was able to look at it online. I do appreciate that opportunity, but just to suggest that perhaps there could be ways to make that review process a little bit more. Again, I'm aware it could just be me. And in my 18 seconds left, I will just say too that I really support the idea of reminding parents about locking guns. As a gun owner myself, growing up with guns in the house, I didn't know where to get a gun lock around here. And so I think that would be a really helpful thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haas. Next up is Don Upham, followed by Bob Beard.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Bregan. As was a common practice in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, I want to share briefly some readings from the book that was the primary text in public schools during those centuries, namely the Bible. In the book of John, chapter 10, Jesus uses the figure of speech, "The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I came that they might have life and have it abundantly." What does it mean that the thief steals? In the Bible, it is a stealing of the honor of God or of man. And this results in the killing of relationship. In the book of Revelation, chapter 12, we are introduced to the chief thief who was in this world as the dragon who waged war in heaven and was thrown down to earth. Verse 9 tells us the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan. In chapter 1, verse 27 of Genesis, we read, God created man in his own image, and in the image of man he created him, male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it." Gender-affirming hormonal and surgery treatment is a dishonoring of God's creation and kills the ability of the transition person to fulfill, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, and is also a depopulation scheme. There is another honor relationship we find in the Ten Commandments given to Moses by God, and which Satan is stealing in this day. Deuteronomy 5:16, honor your father and your mother as the Lord God has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with you in the land which the Lord your God gives you. As this honor is being stolen, it is killing the relationship between parents and their children. We find another warning about the relationship in Deuteronomy 27:16. Cursed is he who dishonors his father and mother. And finally, we have a warning in Deuteronomy 28:58. If you are not careful to observe all the words of this law which are written in this book, to fear this honored and awesome name, the Lord your God, then the Lord will bring extraordinary plagues on you and your descendants, and 7 lasting plagues and miserable and chronic sickness. He will bring back all the diseases of Egypt, of which you were afraid, and they will cling to you, and also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, the Lord will bring upon you until you are destroyed.
Thank you, Mr. Upham. Next up is Bob Beard, followed by Chris Thomas.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak, Dr. Bregan and board. Thank you so much. 2 weeks ago, when I spoke at the MCPS meeting, I had the person following me call me a liar. So I wanted to, challenge on this again. So where does MCPS get their money? They get from the Board of Supervisors, the state and federal government. Again, all governments. Where does the board get their money? Taxpayers. Thus, taxpayers are paying for the teachers union. What happened? What happened to the transparency? My first question I asked last week or 2 weeks ago was, when is the public discussion or town hall regarding collective bargaining going to be held? It wasn't. There was no public hearing. Everything was done behind closed doors. The school board discussion voted on school board's discussion and the vote was on the same night. Why? Why no public discussion? Why? Why behind closed doors? Why? VEA is endorsed and supported for the school board members. VEA gets to negotiate with itself. Taxpayer money pays for dues, admin, and attorney fees. We're looking at over $30,000 plus. Removal of lesson plans as part of the collective bargaining agreement. Why? Is that good for the students? There's no lesson plan requirements? The cap on number of mandatory meetings, there was no definition of mandatory meetings. It's 2. There's 2 is the cap, but there's no definition. You guys passed a resolution with no definition, so anything could happen there. There's a cap on special ed caseloads at 12. Well, the average is currently 12. You guys want to hire 7 more special ed teachers based on declining enrollment. The cost of that is over $500,000 for those 7 teachers. All right, so let's talk about, there's a lot of stuff on the agenda tonight. So talking about the CHS renovations. Let's not forget CHS renovations is $100 million, $65 million more than a Salem High School renovation. The capacity for CHS is 1,200. After renovations, both schools are going to be at 1,200 to 1,600 enrollment. How much money did MCPS move to allocate more money to the CHS project? No one said not to renovate CHS, but why spend $65 million more than Salem High School? What is the difference between CHS and the Salem renovations? Let's talk some spending. MCPS deputy superintendent makes more than 8 times. Makes more than 8 of the 10 superintendents in our region. Dr. Wickers 2 years ago was making $151,000. With 2 5% pay raises, her salary should be around $167,000. I know Dr. Whitter is head of finance, but who and when authorized a $41,000 pay raise? She makes $192,000 now. She had no experience in finance and operations. Her predecessor, Tommy Krantz, had 30 years experience as a CPA. His salary was $135,000. Now we're $192,000, 2 years later. The CSH project was under budget, but not anymore. Annie doesn't have the knowledge or experience to manage such a costly project. We are $15 million over budget with tons of cuts and renovations. Why is she getting paid for on-the-job training?
Thank you, Mr. Beard. Your time's up. Board members, Ms. Osborne has indicated that 30 minutes has passed. Does anyone wish to make a motion to extend public address by an additional 30 minutes?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Franklin and a second by Ms. Parton. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, and then our last speaker is Chris Thomas.
Members of the board, I did not prepare enough content to fill 30 minutes. I apologize. Words have meaning. Nothing, not a single item in any of our school libraries is pornography. Liars can stand up and claim what they like, but this board has a responsibility to make policies based on reality and not on the paranoid fever dreams of a deluded few. The book that's being dragged through the mud right now by our usual group of hang-ringers and pearl clutchers is John Green's Paper Towns. Let's clarify something. Paper Towns is also not pornographic. Pornographic has a legal meaning, and one that is not generally construed to include a coming-of-age story about love, innocence, childhood, and radical hope. Of course, pornographic has a colloquial meaning as well, and I don't mean to yuck anyone's yum here, but it's an odd choice to use to characterize John Green, but you do you. Paper Towns debuted at number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list. It's been made into a film, which I note is rated PG-13, but more importantly, it's an award-winning novel by a superstar young adult author. It's a powerful and important piece of literature, and one that is a deserved place in our English curriculum. Why am I pointing this out? Because these moral panics are a craven and deliberate distraction from the real issues that face our community. Gun violence does actual harm to actual students in our actual community. Faux ethnography does not. Speaking of gun violence, it absolutely boggles my mind that there is opposition in our community to a policy as watered down as sending a letter home to parents that reminds them of the importance of safe gun storage. This policy is the literal definition of the very least we can do. For some reason, the rivers of blood that flow from our schools have become a partisan issue. If there ever was an issue that we should be able to come together upon, it should be this one. Surely, we can all agree that our schools are better off when our 9th graders are not carrying 9mm. Finally, I should like to address the question of, are taxpayers paying for union dues? As Mr. Chilcote pointed out last time, dues are voluntarily paid by teachers out of their after-tax salary. Our tax dollars are no more paying for union dues than they are for Superintendent Bragan's Netflix subscription, and they are no more paying for union dues than they are paying for the political donations made by any member of this board. I'll close with my own Bible quotation, one that I think we would all do well to remember here. Matthew 6:5-15. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners, to be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go to your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. And then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. That is the end of public address. We'll move on to... Oh, we have to sign up. There's a sign up in the back. Yeah. We have a public sign up in the back there, so, or online. I think the Board of Supervisors does kind of an open, yeah. Okay. Next for 2 consent items. If no one wishes to move an item out of consent, we will consider these items approved. Okay. Next up are financial reports. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary reports?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion from Ms. Purcell and second from Ms. Franklin? Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin? Yes. Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented?
Second.
A motion by Ms. Bond and a second by Dr. Gitchery. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton? Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. We're now to our business meeting. The first up is the report from the superintendent.
Thank you, Board Chair Hudson. Got a couple things. First, I want to report out that the newly installed sprinkler pump for the sprinkler system at East Montgomery Elementary School was officially inspected by the fire marshal on February 29th and passed. Yeah, I want to say kudos, and I want to thank everyone that was involved in that project, our facilities, our maintenance people, and everyone else that we had to do that. And especially I want to thank Board of Supervisor Todd King for his direct involvement, not only with the PSA, but also in helping us work with the fire marshal and getting all that up to speed and getting it done. It took a little bit of time, but it's finally done, and we're grateful for those efforts. Next up, I'd like to read something. March is Music in Our Schools Month, and I would like to read this proclamation. Whereas for more than 30 years, March has been officially designated by the National Association for Music Education as Music in Our Schools Month, encouraging communities across the nation to focus on music education. And whereas music education is a part of a well-rounded education for every student, as outlined in the Every Student Succeeds Act, and whereas the purpose of this celebration is to raise awareness for lasting positive impact of music education on the academic, personal, and professional growth of our students. And whereas music education shapes the way our students understand themselves and the world around them, allowing for a deep engagement with learning. And whereas Music in Our Schools Month reminds us that school is where all children should have access to music. And whereas music educators, students, and communities throughout Virginia demonstrate the importance of quality music education to the lives of young people. Whereas the state of Virginia joins our music students, educators, and communities in celebrating the power of music education. Now, therefore, Bernie Bragan, Superintendent of Schools in Montgomery County, I do hereby proclaim March as Music in Our Schools Month in Virginia and in Montgomery County, and encourage all citizens to celebrate and acknowledge every day, but especially in March, that music education is an essential part of every student's well-rounded education. I think the performance we had today was a small snippet of what this county does and how much we support music education and how meaningful it is, not just to enrich the lives of our children, but our community as well, and develop citizens that we can be proud of in the future. So kudos to everyone that works with music education in this county. It's something we should be very proud of. Next up, some time ago we talked about having a demographic study done to take a look at what our enrollment's going to be in the future, in the short-term future, and in the longer future as far as 10 years out. So we went with a firm that put together an a demographic study that will project our enrollment over the next 10 years. Next slide. And that full demographic study can be found on our website. It was shared with our school board members some time ago. It was done by a company called FutureThink, and it was completed in January and gives us some predictions for the next 10 years. I'm not going to read that whole thing to you, thankfully, but I'm going to summarize some of the highlights, and then at the end, if there's any questions or concerns, I'll entertain those as well. Next slide, please. School enrollment across the United States is declining. If you look at the entire country, it's down about 4%. 20 states in our 50-state country have a declining enrollment that exceeds 5%. In Virginia, our projected enrollment decline up until the year of 2031 is 6%. What does that mean for Montgomery County? Over the last 10 school years, our enrollment hit 10,000. and we hit the 10,000 in the 2019-2020 school year. Since that time, though, enrollment has declined, and it's declined about that 6% that's predicted in the previous slide. So our current enrollment today is around 9,450 students. Next slide, please. So when we look at that, where's it going to be 10 years from now? You know, one of the best indicators of who's going to be in kindergarten is you look at the birth rates of today, and 5 years later, you predict out how many students would enroll in kindergarten. And the births in our county are down, right? We hit a high in 2008 of the birth rate since 2008, we had a high in 2012 of 961 births in the county. Since 2019, it hasn't exceeded 740. The last year we have data on is 2022, and that birth rate was 676 students, 676 children. Go on to the next slide, please. Our overall population in the county is about 100,000, and it's going to pretty much stay there in the near future and in about 10 years out. If you take out the Virginia Tech students, who account for a significant amount of the population, obviously, in Blacksburg, the average age in our community is 37.2. What does that mean for school age statistics and how many people will enroll in our schools? Over that time, we're going to decrease about 236 students, 0 to 18. That would be school age children up until the year 2028. This slide here, it's kind of small to see. Go on the next slide, I'm sorry. And I encourage you to look at our website. I tried to get all this information on one slide and make it, where it's manageable for everyone to visualize, but it's kind of hard to see. But there's two really big numbers there. This is what the demographer predicted for our school enrollment for 24-25. The total number on the bottom is about 9,600 students. And 10 years later, it's about 9,100 students. So over that time, it indicates a slight decline of about 500 students over 10 years. Now, there's some different ticks here and there on different grade levels in different years, but we average today about 750 students per grade level. Eventually, that's going down. And if you look at the trends there from 2024 in third grade through seventh grade, that cohort of students as they go through is going to be the largest group, and then from there on, then it's going to be smaller. If you look at the first and second graders in 2033, 34, it's 604 students, 630, 646. You don't get to those 700 numbers until you get into the high school age, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. So we find that trend to be consistent. And that, what does it mean? What's the impact for Montgomery County Public Schools as we look for this 10-year trend? Next slide, please. 6 of our 20 schools will experience growth, but it won't be significant. It will not impact them to the point where we need to have additions put on or we have to really reallocate staff. We may have to adjust grade level instruction here and there, but there's not a significant increase in any one school as we read this demographic study. Most of the schools will have some declining enrollment, and some would be a little more significant than others. If you look at those on top, with Christiansburg Elementary School declining about 70 students, Blacksburg Middle School about 185 or so, and Christiansburg Middle School. Again, so when we look at the data, the crowdedness in our schools, especially in the Blacksburg areas, Blacksburg Middle, Blacksburg High School, we were worried about what that new construction means for the future and the growth, what that's going to look like for those schools that are close to capacity now. It doesn't appear like that's going to be an issue, and that the current capacity we have will be sufficient, at least for the next 10 years, from what this demographic study predicted. Some of the reasons for the decline, our overall population in the country has gone down. The baby boomers have gone through, and having children is declining. I'm one of 5. All my friends had 5 or 6 kids. One family had 13 when I was growing up. Very rarely do people have as many children as we used to, and people are often delaying having children until they get older. And one interesting statistic when I talk to the demographer, I look at those developments off Peppers Ferry Road and those ones off Price's Fork, and I think, okay, new houses, that means a lot of kids. We're going to have to, deal with that surge when it's coming. Because when I've done this in the past, a new single-family home would generate 1.4 kids on average, and that was only 5 or 6 years ago was the prediction. Their prediction now is significantly less than that, less than half a child for each single-family home. And that's significantly different from what it used to be, and maybe one of the reasons why this decline in enrollment and the demographic projections are what they are. So, next slide, please. The conclusions one could draw from that, at least the one sitting here at the mic, is that our current infrastructure, our 20 buildings, our 20 schools, are significant for the short-term growth we're going to experience in this county, which is actually a decline, even with all the additional housing that's being built. And there may be some minor grade level changes and things that we have to adjust within our division, but I think we'll be fine, and I don't think we need to have any additional schools being built at this point, according to our future projected enrollments. Thank you. That's all I have on that. I'll entertain any questions, concerns.
Board, any questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll get an update on Christiansburg High School. Joshua Bauer, Senior Project Manager from Crabtree. Robach and Associates will provide an update on the CHS additions and renovations.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Bragan, thank you all for having me here. I also don't have 30 minutes of content, so we'll try to keep this moving this evening. So we're going to give a quick update on where we are with the construction progress. So let me see if I have control here. So this is the current. Well, actually, this is no longer even the current. Has anybody driven by the site recently? So we have a fence across the front, and we are now starting to demolish the old administration area, which is that one-story piece, in order to make room for the addition. So it doesn't even look like this anymore. So this picture, remember this picture for posterity. So tonight we're going to do a really brief snapshot of the history of the project and the schedule. We're going to talk a little bit more about the phasing plan. We're going to talk about project costs, kind of what the overall project costs are and what we've and how we're planning on spending the money. We're going to look quickly at the floor plans, elevations, and then we'll show you a construction photo and talk a little bit about how that's going to go. So I did notice as I was sitting through the wonderful student presentation, I did notice a couple of glitches in the time, so I'm going to walk you through that. So we were hired in 2021, and we went through programming and community meetings and started the design. In February of 22, the decision by the administration was to hire a construction manager at risk. For those who were on the board at the time, if you remember, the decision was to go with as a team effort and go construction manager at risk. We then sent them the drawings for design development. They came up with the numbers, and we were roughly $28 million over what our budget was. Because at the time, we saw a huge escalation in costs, and until we actually got numbers from the subcontractors, we didn't know what it was going to look like. So we spent the next several months redesigning and cutting about 40,000 square feet out of the building. Two things about that. One is that we did not cut a single classroom in that cut of 40,000 square feet. We reappropriated space, we looked at things differently, we looked at consolidating, but we didn't cut one educational space in that effort. So over the next couple of months, we redesigned it. Contractor said, "Hey, I think we're awesome," and so we gave that back to them. They had their subcontractors run it through, and we were still $20 million over budget. So even though we cut 40,000 square feet out, it only cut about $6 to $8 million out of our total project cost. So at that time, there was a decision to move in a different path and go with a design bid build. So what we did is we developed then in 23, in the beginning of 23, what we did is we redid the drawings and we put it out for bid in June of 23. At the same time, if you remember what we did is we did something called Phase 0. So over the winter break, we did a bus entrance, and then over the summer break of 23, just last summer, we moved the admin, the nurse, and the guidance out of their current location into other spaces. I then and still believe that was a fantastic idea. Well, what that did was that didn't have us move everybody in the middle of the school year, kind of got everybody settled before we started. And now we can do all this demolition and stuff without having to disrupt a whole bunch of folks. So at the time, I think it was a good idea, and even now into actually moving it forward, I think it was a great idea. So we received bids in July of last year. Unfortunately, we were still a little bit over budget. We weren't $20 million over, but we were about $5 million over budget with the actual. So while we're still over budget, one thing I want to stress is that we went from $128 million in August of 22 to $89 million in less than a year of time. We made a significant improvement in our overall project without cutting a single educational space. So we just got super creative on how we're going to reuse spaces. We didn't do as much demolition, and I think we made a significant progress in the overall steps. So over the next couple of months, we did some more value engineering with the contractor that was awarded, and we signed the contract in September of 25. Because we had to go and with the value engineering, we had to resubmit those to the code official for review. So it typically takes them a couple of months of time. So what we do is we gave this to the code official, shared that with the town of Christiansburg, and then we were able to do a notice to proceed on December of 28th of 23 to Branch, who is a general contractor, awarded general contractor, and they started construction. So between now, essentially between December of 23 and May of 26 is going to be our construction timeframe for the overall project. I broke it. So let's talk about phasing. So the phasing is part of the overall challenge. So with the addition getting smaller, what that means is that the phasing got a bit more complicated. So if you remember, the addition originally kind of went across the front and then connected over into the CTE area, and it was, it was roughly 150,000 square feet. So we cut about 40,000 square feet out. So now it's just a little over 100,000 square feet. So, and we went from doing all new science and English and math and social studies classrooms to just doing 22 classrooms. So what that means for us is that we can, when we construct this, so the addition is going to happen first, so that's going to happen going along Independence. Once that gets completed, then what we can do is start to do other phasing by moving students out of their current classrooms into the new classrooms to be able to renovate. So we're doing roughly a block of around 20 to 22 classrooms at a time as we go throughout the building. Now, that's relatively consistent except for a couple of spaces. The gym and the auditorium, we're looking at summer of 24 and 25 to renovate those spaces, so that way we're not affecting, we're not negatively affecting those spaces during the school year. The same thing with CTE, is that CTE, what's super important is that we keep those labs operational during the school year. So we're looking at summer of 24 and 25 to renovate those labs. We'll be doing some construction of the classrooms during the school year, but the labs themselves, which are the priority, are going to be operational. So this is the plan that we have right now, working with Branch, that is developed to make sure that we have lights operational, we have flow. We're also working with the fire marshal to make sure that we have passive egress, and that there's not going to be a glitch of safety, or of systems going down while the school is operational. We believe that this is a very solid plan. So we spent the last couple of months really developing it with them, and we will continue to develop this as we go through. Because here's what we found, is that we're going to get a little bit faster over here, and we're going to get a little bit slow over here. I was really excited that tonight I was going to show you some awesome pictures of the demolition of the front of the building. The equipment didn't arrive today. So guess what? So some areas are going to move faster and slower. What we've asked the administration of the school, we've asked the contractors, everybody to remain as agile as possible. Is that as we get some areas done faster, can we move this a little bit? Can we move the spaces around a little bit, or as it goes a little bit slower, some materials don't arrive, or contractors aren't able to staff up as appropriately. That's the agility that we're going to have all throughout this project. And this is no different than any other construction projects happening in the Commonwealth or anywhere else in the country. Stuff is going to happen as we go through. We will keep a continual progress of it and make sure safety of the students and the educational program is being operational the entire time. So project costs. So this is a summary sheet looking at the site work, the building additions and renovations. Again, what we do is we try to track everything. There's a lot of moving parts in our project, especially when we're talking one of this substantial. The phase zero, make sure that we're calculating and calculating that as part of our overall cost for the bus loop, the relocation of the admin nurse and guidance, the cost for the permit fees, the contingency costs, the cost for the furniture, for technology, the cost for the design, all of those are part of the overall puzzle because we've been instructed to not have this project increase over $100 million. And we are committed to help guarantee that that does not happen. And everybody else on the team is committed to that also. So on the right-hand side, you can see the proposed draw schedule. So this is how we are mapping out the overall how the money is going to be spent. There has been money that has been spent to date, the design fees, the cost for the for the phase 0 work, the permit cost. There has been cost spent plus, and this is super exciting, is that we are doing a lot of owner purchased items, and that does two things for us. One is that we make sure that we guarantee control from the standpoint of what is being ordered and also when it arrives, number one, and number two is that we save on taxes. Okay, so because the contractor cannot purchase something for us and save money on the taxes. So, example, we're going to spend roughly $8 million on mechanical equipment for this building. So, the $8 million and 4% of that is a lot of money. So if we buy it ourselves, we can do the same exact purchase. The contractor will still install it, but we can save that money on taxes. And what we're doing is we're calculating that into overall cost, again, to make sure that we are keeping within our project budget. So what we're showing here is the proposed draw schedule. We're keeping track of this every single month of how much money is being spent. We don't overspend and we don't underspend. The contractor can only bill for how far they are along in progress each month. So if they bill us and say, "Hey, we demolished the entire admin wing and it didn't get demolished," that does not get paid for. Materials, if they're going to buy materials, they have to show us the receipt. If it's stored off-site, it has to have insurance and pictures. There are checks and balances all throughout this process to make sure that we're spending our money wisely and we don't have money walking away or materials walking away. So again, this is what we're showing for the proposed draw schedule, which is in alignment with other projects of this. Some months we spend a little bit more, a little bit less, but again, this is what our proposed effort is going to be right now. So looking at the floor plans. The floor plans have not changed since the latest design, showing the addition, the 22 classrooms, the secure vestibule with the administration, the cafeteria, the new kitchen that's happening on the ground floor, so the renovation, the auditorium, the locker room renovations. Some really cool things that we've been able to do with the overall design is focus on adjacencies. Making sure that the performing arts spaces are adjacent to the auditorium because they're the folks that support that. So the band, the theater arts, the choral, all of those are adjacent. We moved the special education classes, which are in the green, onto the ground floor to make it easier for those students and those teachers to be able to access their spaces. So that way they're all on the ground level and don't have to travel up to the second floor like they do now. As we look at the second floor, some desires where the English department really wanted to be close to the media center. So the English is the second story classrooms, and the first purple space there as we go from right to left is the media center. Some other great things we've been able to do is the auxiliary gym, which is directly adjacent to the main gym, which allows the ability for events to happen. If it's a basketball tournament, volleyball tournament, wrestling tournament, you can actually have a connection between those spaces as opposed to having them in completely different locations. We've been able to provide all brand new science labs and all of the CTE spaces, which are on the top right. We are renovating every lab, every space is getting improvement, and every lab is getting a separate classroom, which is recommended by the Department of Education. So now as we move to the outside, these are just some renderings of the exterior. Some super exciting things. We got to pick the brick. So they showed up on site with the brick. So we got to confirm the two different colors, the dark gray and the tan. Next thing is going to be the picking of the mortar. So they're going to do some sample panels. And the next time that we get together with you guys, we'll show you some of the mock-up pictures of the mock-up panels. So what's going to happen over the next couple of months is so right now in construction is that it's not super sexy. There's a lot of dirt that's moving. We're doing a lot of underground stuff. We're moving dirt and putting utilities in, so it's not really evident on how much awesome is happening. But what's important is that we're establishing the foundation for what is going to happen. So as we move into the April and May timeframe, you're going to actually start to see the walls going up. Because right now what you see is this. So we're just moved a whole bunch of dirt, but we're working on the foundations, and it's going to start to get super exciting. Before you know it, we're gonna have this elevation. This is what it's going to look like in a very short period of time. We're looking at less than 16 months, and this should be the front elevation of the building, looking from Independence. So a couple things about construction is that this is the camera that is currently sitting on top of the building, looking towards Independence. We are finally at a point where I believe we're going to make this live. So we're working with the school division to put this onto the school division's website. We didn't like this as much as a camera that would actually be on Independence, so we're now working on putting a second camera. So we're going to have a camera from Independence that's going to be looking towards the building, so you're going to see some more activity that's going to be happening. It's going to be live streamed, so there'll be 2 live streams on the site. We're also going to be doing pictures, so there's going to be a history of time. So you'll be able to go in and see past pictures we're not quite sure if it's going to be daily or how it's going to be, but there will be snapshot pictures that you're going to be able to go back through the history of the time of the project. We're also going to be giving those pictures to the school division so that way you can have them for as the project develops, showing that addition happening. We're also doing drone photos. I am not the best at drone, but we're still going to do the drone photos, of that, which we'll be sharing also on the site. So again, while it's taken us a little bit of time to get here, the exciting thing is that over the next couple of months, there's going to be a ton of activity and a ton of exciting thing that's going to happen that's going to be very visible from Independence as you drive by, and also on the cameras. So with that said, I promised I didn't have 30 minutes. So are there any questions that anybody has? I'm more than happy to go back to anything that we want to talk about. No questions? Well, thank you all. Yes, Ms. Bond.
I was just going to say it's very exciting, and I appreciate you showing all the slides of everything that we're doing, which is much more, that I've said before, extensive than some of the other school, fixings that we've had, and that's been brought up to our attention. And this is a major, with gyms being built and classrooms being built, it's not just a front being put on a school. And that's kind of what I think some of the things have been brought up to our attention. So I appreciate you showing the slides and showing that it's definitely a major renovation, excuse me, a major renovation. So, and if there's any questions for our community members, they can look at these slides and see what a major renovation it is. So.
One thing I do want to point out is that you have a bunch of modular classrooms. If you haven't driven in the back of the building, you actually have a bunch of modular classrooms because you are over capacity at this building. And one superintendent that I truly love, we had to do modular classrooms, and she decided to put the modular classrooms in the front of the building, which got everybody really upset. They're like, "What's wrong with you? Why did you put those?" Because we want to draw attention to the fact that we are over capacity. Because when we put them in the back of the building, which again, from an aesthetic standpoint is good, it also it's a good thing from safety, is that it does make it harder to see that you have challenges with this building, and you do. And so part of this is that, again, we're meeting capacity, and we're creating a little bit more capacity than what you currently have, and we're able to get rid of those modular classrooms as part of this, which is going to mean that all the students are going to have classrooms inside of the building.
Well, and adding the second gym too.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think a lot of community members realize that, that high school is the only high school in our county that doesn't have a second gym. Mm-hmm. So that's not a small undertaking as well. So.
Yeah, so I'll just echo Ms. Bond. But it won't be until folks walk into that building that we'll be able to help folks understand that this is not another school in another county, another city, another town. This is Christiansburg, and the difference is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
We're gonna look like the rest of the schools, high schools in Montgomery County, and it's about time. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all. Have a great
Just a random question, sorry. I drop my kid off there a couple times a week for robotics around back, right? And so because so much work is being done in the front, there's a lot more traffic kind of being drawn around the sides of the building, right? So kind of up the eastern side and around the back there for drop-offs and stuff. That road's getting chewed up pretty bad back there, and I'm sure that's going to happen over in the area where we have the bus loop currently. Are those areas going to be repaved as a part of this after things get done?
Yes, and that's been brought to our attention. We're actually making some repairs right now. So as the bus is coming out, it's actually, that parking lot was designed for a car parking lot. It was not really designed for buses. So we are making some improvements now to try to reduce any further destruction of that. And we are working on doing an overlay, or if it's worse than that, we will have to do additional repairs. But yes, what we're doing right now was not how it was originally designed for. Plus, it's also over 20 years old. So, but yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Right. Mr. Barrow, I have one question, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
And only one. Are we on time to get it done, August of 2026 still?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the
You hesitated, you're scaring me. I thought I threw you a softball.
Sorry, it's been a little slow. So yes, sir, we are very much on schedule. I said, so far, everything has been really positive as far as what we found, and even with the soils on the site, the really key to the success of this is going to be the addition. And the good news is that's all new work. So yes, everything that we're getting from the contractors, that we're very much on schedule. We're even said agility is the challenge here. So one of the things, speaking of agility, is that we're actually ordering in order to make sure the generator is arriving on time, it's being ordered from Brazil. It's the same manufacturer, but we could not get it in time. So the contractor actually went and found a generator in Brazil. They're going to be able to fabricate it, same specifications to get it here on time. So we are very much working to make sure that we are meeting the schedule.
So the answer is yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Should that change or something happen, just keep us informed. It's really important. And as Ms. Franklin said, we want to walk through those doors, and that's when it comes to fruition for everybody. So I appreciate all your efforts on that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Good seeing you. Okay, next up, Dr. Bragan will provide updates on facilities projects.
I know we had that scheduled for the updates on the MCPS projects, and it's really Dr. Whitaker's undertaking, and she put this all together, and she's been working hard with her team to bring this report to you and share with you. She couldn't be here tonight, so if it's okay with the school board, I would ask that we present this at another meeting where she can be out here and really talk to you at length. I mean, I could do it and go over and give you a high-level view, but I think this is really her baby, and I think she'd want to do it if you would allow me that option. She was not able to attend tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Michelle Knotts, Supervisor of School Nutrition Programs, and Angie Bland, Supervisor of Purchasing, will provide an update on the RFP process for the school nutrition program.
Good evening. Michelle and I are here this evening to provide an update on the school nutrition food service management request for proposal. Our current contract with the nutrition group will expire at the end of the school year with no remaining renewals. The Code of Virginia requires districts to compete this requirement every 5 years. The VDOE provides a pre-populated document, and it contains all the terms and conditions that are necessary to provide that solicitation. So Michelle and I utilized that document. We incorporated all of the district pertinent information, and we submitted that to the state for approval. On February the 6th, we received state approval to move forward with the solicitation. On February the 7th, we issued the request for proposal to vendors. It was included on our district website, and it was also listed on EVA, which is the Virginia's electronic procurement marketplace.
Good evening. A committee was formed to review the proposal and to attend the vendor presentations, the negotiating meetings, and to score to select a firm to award. The committee members include school principals, cafeteria employees, and employees from finance and also human resources. A mandatory pre-proposal conference was held on February 22nd. Attendance at this meeting is a prerequisite for submitting a proposal. The purpose of this meeting was to provide an overview of the district's needs, answer any vendor questions, and provide site visits at several schools to allow vendors to observe the current food service process. We had 4 companies attend the mandatory pre-proposal conference. Vendor questions were collected in an addendum to the solicitation to respond to the questions was issued on February 28th, 2024. And Angie will review next steps.
So next, the proposals are due on March 15th at 3 p.m. The proposals that we receive will then be distributed to each of the committee members. That will allow them to do an initial review. Following that review, we will schedule vendor presentations. Once vendor presentations have been completed, we will conduct negotiations with the vendors. That will allow us to answer any questions that might still be open for the district and also to come up with the best financial arrangement for the district. Following negotiations, the committee members will score the proposals, and the highest ranking score, of course, would be considered for an award. That recommendation will then be made to Dr. Bragan for his review, and at the end of the process, when we have a finalist selected, that final contract must still go to the VDOE for final approval before it can be awarded. And that's kind of where we're at. We'll open that up to any questions.
So when we went through this process the first time, the board was able to sample food and talk with the proposed vendor to answer questions. Will we get that opportunity again?
We talked about that with the committee earlier. Two things was our thought, and y'all weigh in if I say it wrong, right? At some point, if a board member or two even wanted to participate in that committee, they are welcome to do that. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And then we figured at some point, we would probably narrow it down to 2 vendors, and that if we wanted them to present to our school board and kind of share the kind of food that they would even have sampled the food and then weigh in and ask those kind of questions, as Ms. Franklin said, for the 2 finalists, if we could. We're permitted to do that, correct? I think that would be a nice opportunity if we can do that.
I know there are 2 separate board meetings, I believe, in April, so you could schedule one each night, or you could do both at the same time, whatever would be the preference of the board.
We might need 2 to clean our palates.
Thank you.
What does the scoring process look like?
So there is a weighted criteria. There are several factors that you look at. The first would be their plan for providing the overall service. We also look at experience and qualifications. That's a factor. We also ask for references from other school districts, and we definitely do our homework. We did a great deal of that prior to awarding this last contract. In addition to that, the cost, of course, is one of the primary components of all of that.
Cool.
There's a standard scoring grid that is part of the template that is given to us to use from the state, and we, of course, have adopted that and is using that criteria.
Okay, great. It'd be good for the school board to be able to taste it, but I think it'd be even better for some students to get to sample it as well, since they're the ones actually having to eat it.
Nice to sample the food, but I want to speak to these folks and make sure that they're going to treat people who they bring into our district right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, we have a question from one of our student reps.
Hello. So I might have zoned out for this, but since this is affecting the student body, right? Will students have an opportunity to see or even take a sample of this new kind of food arrangement?
We could certainly, if it's the board's direction, if there's students that could actually attend a board meeting that where we're bringing them in. They could do a presentation, they could do a sampling. We can certainly work something out.
Perhaps even some of our school board representatives.
Oh, we're being taste testers now. Okay. That's fair.
I think you just signed up.
But I think it's a really good idea, and Ms. Franklin, I mentioned that too. If the students are going to be eating the food, maybe have a representative sample body to participate.
Absolutely. If we wanted to bring them in for presentations, they could spend the entire day. We could even look at maybe taking them out to schools and have a sampling available to students, you know, at some point during the day. There's lots of ideas that we can throw out there.
Awesome.
I know a lot of the food service workers are employed by the nutrition group that work in our schools. So if we went with another vendor, then does that mean kind of rehiring people, or people in their current positions would need to be rehired to work for a new company if a new vendor were to come in?
Yes, Ms. Purcell. Typically, that's how it works is we would want our employees, and I'm speaking as a whole, the food service team, those that are working for the current contract food service company would have the opportunity to interview and apply for the positions with the new company. Typically, that acquisition is a very high percentage of people that will roll right into the new company. Very small percentage might fall off, and truly the reason that I have seen is because another background check is conducted. And if something has happened in between the time period of when they had their first background check done and the newest one, that might be cause, but really it's 1% or less that I have seen.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, board, any other questions? Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Dr. Amanda Widener will present the MCPS staffing update.
Good evening, Chair Hudson, board members, Dr. Reagan. I'm here to give you an update on our current certified and classified vacancies for the month of March. As I typically do, first is a comparison of where we are today compared to where we were a year ago. You'll see that there's, for our certified positions, a little bit of an increase compared to last year. Classified vacancies are about the same. The next slide shows a comparison this month to last month. Not a lot of change there. Some of the increase that you see, for example, the elementary certified, you'll notice that we've gone up one, and that is because of a new ESL position that we needed to add in there. So again, those numbers are somewhat similar to where they were a month ago. And now I'll go through each of those categories just to kind of indicate specifically where the vacancies are. So for our administrator roles, we still continue to have that 10-month special education coordinator position open. At this point in the year, you know, we're getting ready to start Q4 soon. It's likely that we will not fill that position this year, but we are reviewing applications and with the hope that we will be able to fill that position for next year. These are our certified elementary vacancies, so teacher positions. Again, a lot of these positions you've seen before. Some of them have been vacant for some time. We do have long-term subs in several of those positions. So now as we look to next year, it's unlikely at this point in March that we're going to fill these positions for this year. That doesn't mean we're not trying to. We still continue to review applicants. But I do want to point out, for example, our 2 special education teacher openings in elementary, which are currently at Auburn Elementary and Christiansburg Primary. We have long-term subs in place, but we have filled those positions for next year. So we do have candidates who've been recommended and approved, and those positions are filled for next year. And then you'll note there is a new position there, an ESL teacher, which was added based on increased numbers, and we have to be compliant in terms of meeting the needs of those children. So those are our certified elementary vacancies. There are our certified secondary vacancies. Again, if you look at that last column today, Those are very similar to where they were last month. So for many of these positions where we may not be able to fill them this year, we are looking to fill them for next year. All right, moving over to the classified side, we'll start in facilities. We are continuing to look to fill our 2 HVAC positions, and I will note that we've had some recent applicants. So I'm hoping that we'll be doing some interviews there. Ground maintenance, we're looking to fill that position, and I believe we actually have interviews set up this week for that position. We have recently done interviews for our construction project manager, and the committee did recommend a candidate there. And then computer technicians positions, we have filled one of those positions, and then there is another candidate who's been recommended. So we've made a little bit of progress there. In the transportation department, we do have one 6.5-hour position that is open, 3 4.25-hour positions, but there are 2 candidates that are in workflow that have been recommended for those positions. So we're in the process of filling 2 of those positions. And then we are accepting applications for a mechanic, 2 bus aides, and an administrative assistant position. We've reposted our job posting for the executive administrative assistant board clerk. We have filled the administrative assistant position at Mont Central. We are accepting applications for our open floater nurse position. We have a new vacancy at BMS, the ISS paraprofessional. That vacancy recently happened, so we're accepting applications there. We have filled the last instructional paraprofessional position at Eastern Montgomery Elementary School. We currently have 8 vacancies for special education paraprofessionals. AES was recently filled. We do have 1 candidate that's recommended, and then we're in the process of reviewing applications for the other open vacancies. Our lunch recess aide position, CPS has recently filled 2 positions there, and we do have 2 new vacancies at Gilbert Lincoln and KIPS. A lunch aide position is open at Gilbert Lincoln. Our elementary custodian vacancies, we currently have 2 vacancies. We have recently filled a position at Eastern Montgomery Elementary School. Falling Branch and Price's Fork had recent vacancies, but the good news there is we already have candidates who've been recommended for those positions. Secondary custodian positions, we currently have 6 vacancies. We've recently filled the position at Blacksburg High School and Auburn High School. There are currently 3 candidates recommended for open positions at Auburn Middle, Blacksburg Middle, and CHS. So we hope those will be filled soon. And then we are accepting applications for 2 positions at Auburn Middle. And then we've had a very recent vacancy of someone who retired at the Ops Center. So those are our custodian vacancies. And then lastly, I just want to give you some data on our substitute information. So we currently have 527 substitutes. So that does include 4 new substitutes this month. There is our substitute fill rate for the month of February. We were down a little bit compared to January. We were over 90% for teachers in January, so slightly down in February, not quite 90%. And then our paraprofessional fill rate was definitely down. It's 34%. It had been over 40 in January. I also broke it out by community. I did want to show you this because we have added some additional designated sub positions in the Eastmont strand. We added a 2nd designated sub at Eastern Montgomery Elementary, Shawsville Middle, and Eastern Montgomery High School. And I think that's definitely made a difference. You can see that their fill rate is now more similar to the fill rate in the other strands. So while that paraprofessional fill rate is not as high as we would like it to be, at least I think that among the strands we see some more similarity in those numbers. So I think the addition of those designated subs has hopefully helped. Any questions?
Board, any questions? Okay, great.
And I just wanted to put one question before the board, just in terms of making this information useful for you. We are approaching the 4th quarter of the year, and this is the time of year where we typically put a lot of our focus for our certified positions on filling positions for next year. So for future updates, do you want me to look at our current open positions for next year? Not all those are currently listed here, because most positions that are vacant for next year, someone is in those positions now until the end of the school year. But if it would be helpful, that is information I can provide.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to know what's what.
Okay, I'll do that for next month's update then.
Can I ask one question?
Of course.
So the paraprofessional fill rate is really low. You said 37%?
Yeah, it's usually around 40%. It's typically
Oh,
much
it's not
lower
that
than
big.
our teach, but it is lower this month than it was last month.
Okay. I was wondering what the impact of having such a low fill rate is for a paraprofessional, but it might be difficult for you to to.
So it means, when they have unfilled positions in buildings, the staff there will work to move people around to cover as much as possible.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Adam Simpson and Steve Sizemore will present information regarding suspension rates across all MCPS schools.
Chair Hudson, can I ask a question? I'm hearing a phone constantly beeping. It's very distracting. Is it possible to ask the community if they have a phone, if they could put it on silent? I'd appreciate that.
Yes, please. I heard it as well. I didn't know where it was coming from. I assumed it was Dr. Bragan. I said I assumed that was you.
It was not me. Oh, come on.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Bragan. We're here tonight to present some data on discipline from years 2001-2024. Purpose of this presentation is to share information regarding suspension rates across all MCPS schools. Data are included from the past 3 school years and across student groups to demonstrate trends over time.
We wanted to include the mission and beliefs, just as a reminder that we are committed to these statements no matter the setting, the situation, in the classroom, on the school bus, in the hallway, the athletic field, when students are behaving well and when they make poor choices. And we are focused on the whole child, and we do operate from a student-centered approach. Teachers, counselors, and administrators use a wide variety of preventative and proactive measures on a daily basis to help students navigate behavioral issues so that they do not result in suspension. Our policy on suspension references that suspension or expulsion should be used as a last resort after using alternatives to suspension in accordance with a leveled administrative response to the student progressive discipline matrix. So with that in mind, we are presenting data on when those preventative measures are not successful and when we do have to assign a suspension in order to protect the learning environment. So just wanted to provide that context before we jumped into the numbers.
First slide is enrollment summary by student group. You can see our total population, 9704 in 21-22. 9730, 2223, and 2324, 9430, and each group represented. Next slide. Number of students assigned OSS 1 or more days. Each group represented again by out-of-school suspensions. Numbers of students and percent. The next slide, we wanted to represent the students with 504s and students with disabilities and non-IEP and 504 students to try to break it out so that we could see the total numbers of students there. And then same groups with 1 or more out-of-school suspensions.
All right, the next series of slides are going to show a comparison representing percentage of students, starting with all students and then broken down by student group. So this represents the total population compared with the number of students, number of total students who have been assigned at least 1 day of out-of-school suspension. So going from 5.36% of students in 21-22 to now 4.21% of students have been suspended this school year. So the subsequent slides are all the same, broken down by student group. So what you see in the blue is the percent of students represented in that group compared to the overall student population. So the blue bar is the population, and the red is the percentage of students in that group from the suspended group, meaning 1.35% of the students who were suspended in 21-22 fell into the Asian student group. So you can see the 3-year comparison for each group. So I'll kind of click through those and, yeah, I'm sorry. So let's just stick with the first graph. So in 21-22, 3.64% of all of our students were in the Asian student group. 1.35% of the students who were suspended were in that student group. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so this represents our Black student population. This is our multiracial students. Hispanic students. White students. And then we have students with disabilities on this slide. And the next slide is students with 504 plans.
So if you're a Black student, a mixed race student, a student with disabilities, or with a 504, you are really in trouble in Montgomery County because you're going to be going out.
It shows that a higher percentage of students than is represented by that student group. Yes, ma'am.
Again, you're going to be in trouble. Something's wrong here.
We definitely are concerned by this data as well. This slide, you see some increase or some improvement in the trends here, and then we have the students with disabilities and the students with 504s. You can see the difference in the size of the graphs.
Right, but this is over 3 years. I bet you if you went back 3 more years, the data would look pretty much the same. So something's not a real concern, and we need to be doing something different.
Yeah, this is definitely data that we have been looking at the division level and also at the school level with principals, talking about incorporating some goals into school improvement plans moving forward and how we can address some of these issues. Also at the strategic plan meeting recently, we did talk about how to infuse some of our work in across settings with our diversity and equity work. Right now, we kind of operate in silos. So how can we incorporate that lens of equity into all of our work as a division? So that was a recent conversation we had.
All right, which was a conversation when the strategic plan was put together, that all 5 of those areas would be working together to make things better. And when we added our diversity and equity department, that was supposed to be what was happening. And it shows it's not happening. And it's getting really old. If you're in one of these groups in Montgomery County, and every day you go to school, and the likelihood of you being put out of school or being put in some kind of suspension is ridiculous. How can you expect children to come into this kind of environment and feel like they really feel welcome and they want to learn? How does that happen? It doesn't. And if you look at the gaps between the students, it shows it. And achievement, and that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the gaps.
And I would agree that those two are definitely connected, right? If we're not engaged in the classroom, if we're not successful, then that's going to show up in our behaviors as well. So we need to make sure we're looking at it together, connected. I agree.
Just to clarify, I think you said this earlier, but on all these slides where you have the percent of suspended students, that's covering ISS, OSS, short-term, long-term, expulsion, the whole.
No, sir. So these slides in particular are out-of-school suspension. So if we go to the end, there's some summary slides that break it out by ISS, OSS, 10-day, long-term, and expulsion. So these graphs in particular are related to all students with 1 or more days of OSS, out-of-school suspension.
Okay.
I have a question about slide number 8.
Slide number 8.
What
was the title of that slide? I'm
showing
sorry.
3 years of data with out-of-school suspensions, and I find the graph deceiving because for 23-24 we're looking at, is it 7 months?
Correct.
7 months of data aligned with 10 months of data. But if you break it down, we've suspended 56.7 students per month this academic year, and the earlier academic years, it was fewer, it's 52 for 21-22, and then 50 for 22-23, and I just find that to be a very disturbing pattern if this is something that you say that you've been trying to address.
I'm sorry, you said slide 8, so what's the title of that slide so I can?
It's all MPS students, total population, number of students with 1 out-of-school suspension at least, I assume.
That's correct.
So that's like, that just seems like the problem is not being addressed, and we're on pace to exceed the last 2 years. So am I interpreting this
Yes,
incorrectly?
you are correct.
Or
You're correct.
Okay.
Right, if you were to probably, we are approaching the end of the third quarter, right? So this represents 75% of the school year, roughly. And so you could project out, well, if we stay on that same pace, where we would land as far as total number of students suspended. So I would say that all the data we're looking at is definitely a symptom of issues that we need to address more proactively. When behaviors exhibit themselves, administrators are faced with decisions to make about is a suspension appropriate? And in most of these cases, if not all the cases, we have deemed that they were appropriate. So the question is, how can we prevent those behaviors from happening in the first place, so that our students can stay in school and be successful in the classroom?
So with that statement, without knowing what the students were suspended for, then I would like to see that data so we can see how equitable things are across the lines for all of our students, because that has been an issue in this district also.
Yeah, and we can certainly pull that and get it to you.
The board needs to see that.
Yes, ma'am.
Frankly, the public needs to see it too.
I think what would be helpful in probably maybe at the next board meeting, this is a initial salvo, a chair in this data, and some of the points made were well taken, right? We're a little more than midway through the year, but it's hard to compare this year's school year with the 2 previous years because it's not a complete school year. Sometimes total aggregate numbers are helpful too, and the percentages as they're listed could be deceiving and could change pretty significantly depending on the number of incidents that occur moving forward. As Ms. Franklin said as well, though, need to know a little more depth of what these incidents were, right? If it's somebody bringing a weapon to school, well, that's pretty significant, and it's also pretty standard across the board how that would behave. But there are other ones that have more gray area as far as interpretation. I think we need to look at those. And as a whole, as a division, this data we need to use and get that sense of urgency to change it, because when the students When it manifests into maladaptive and inappropriate conduct that results in a suspension, whether that's an in-school suspension, out-of-school, short or long-term, it's almost too late. At some point, that child didn't feel connected in the building, connected to what was going on. Something happened, whether it was student-led, teacher-led, whatever, and prompted him or her to react in a way that resulted in a negative consequence and being put out of school. This work begins way before that, right? And the work that we're trying to do and working with the equity teams for our Black and brown students and our other minority students, but also with our special needs students, is how do we do that earlier? How do we get everyone involved in it when the students are in preschool and kindergarten, where everybody feels that sense of purpose and connection to the community, that they don't act out in a disproportionate amount to everyone else? That's what we need to focus on. That's what we need to move forward on and continue to do that heavy lift. And I think we need more robust data, and if we would encourage, and I would direct you guys, both of y'all, to perform that for the next board meeting.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And again, I would like to say, to your point, acting out may not be the same for one student as it is another student, which means our Black and brown students and our students with disabilities are going out of the building disproportionately for many reasons, and we need to find out why. And it's not always the students.
I'd just like to reiterate that I know that we're going to be discussing some of these issues at the board retreat. So I think, yes, I would like to see more specificity if there's categorization also at like middle school, high school levels. I don't know if you want to do it at building level. And also, I mean, you presented the data. You haven't really talked anything, you haven't even sort of to address your interpretation or any initial analysis from this, other than giving us numbers. I mean, have you drawn any conclusions from the data as you were looking at it and analyzing it?
I believe since the pandemic, post-pandemic, we've struggled to socialize and to re-engage with the community rules and settings that we're operating in. And I think that's been a struggle for kids. High anxiety, high pressure, not understanding what school really is. So I look at the data as saying we need to address and support and nurture those kids.
We also notice the same trends that you all are pointing out, for sure, with the disproportionality and the on pace to potentially exceed the number of suspensions this school year. So certainly, like I said, as we move forward and make plans, work with principals to say, we have summer data teams every year. Schools write school improvement plans based on their data. So having principals reflect on this data at their school level, it might be, if you dig that deep, the school might realize that their issue is related to this student group more than another, and maybe that's where their goal needs to be oriented. And so just having those conversations, starting at the principal level, having those open and honest conversations with their staffs. Maybe there's something happening in classrooms that's a specific school needs some additional PD or training to talk about, how to de-escalate students, how to, I said it earlier, if we are providing engaging instruction, if we are differentiating and meeting each student where they are, students with disabilities, they're struggling to learn. So when we're not fully meeting their academic needs, they're going to be more likely to potentially act out. And that's on us, that's on our instructional staff to identify their needs, meet them where they are so they're engaged in learning. If they're engaged in learning, they're going to be less likely to misbehave.
So we can't keep blaming everything on the pandemic, because again, if you go past that, we still have the same issues when it comes to our Black and brown students and our students with disabilities. So there's more going on, and nobody wants to really address it because it's uncomfortable. Well, think about how it is for our students and, quite frankly, our staff who have to watch this. So there needs to be some real big, honest conversations and put some policies or whatever we need to put in place to turn this around, because this is ridiculous. We're talking decades decades of the same kind of crap. It needs to stop.
I'll definitely add, this is a great first start. I mean, kind of piling on to some of the comments that we've had earlier, but we, at least as long as I've been on the board, we haven't really seen this kind of data. This is good.
It's because it was so bad.
The good thing about data is that there's more of it, and you can kind of slice and dice it as you need, right? So for me, one of the biggest things I think is to get a better understanding for the kinds of discipline that's going on, right? And to an extent, at least at whether it's high school, middle school, elementary school level, because the kinds of issues that our special ed students might be dealing with in middle school could be different than what our high schools students are dealing with who aren't special ed, right? Or black and brown students in high school, right? So really, that would help us target our initiatives and our policies moving forward, because it's probably not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution for every case, right? This is a great job. Give us more of this so we can actually help.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the data can be pulled any variety of ways. So whatever that you want us to do, we can pull it by behavior type, elementary, middle, high, however you want it grouped. If we can get that direction, we can turn that around and provide that for you.
School by school. We need to see what's going on in each building. And quite frankly, even at grade level, we need to know what's going on.
We can certainly provide that for you. We stopped a little bit short of the last few slides, so just to provide that overview. That's okay. You want to do it?
This is just looking at the ISS, OSS, 10-day OSS, long-term suspension and expulsion, and it's pretty minimal in elementary.
All right, so these are our total numbers. And again, to your point, Ms. Purcell, earlier, these are partial data, obviously, for 23-24, so we can project increases there. So these are total number of occurrences. So anytime ISS was assigned or OSS was assigned.
Okay, so this doesn't break it down into the different groups of students that we identify. Yeah, just a lot more information that we need.
We can certainly do that. And then the last slide is high school with the same information. Just trying to show trends over time for the different categories.
So one question I have, it looks like in high school as well as middle school, in-school suspensions are approximately the same or a little less than out-of-school suspensions. Why in elementary school are out-of-school suspensions so much higher than in-school suspensions?
Most elementary schools aren't using in-school suspension. It takes a staff member and a support person to be able to monitor that. It's sort of called a reset or refocus room, where we go in and we talk about what the behavior was. We do some teaching, some modeling, maybe some social stories about what's appropriate, and then try to get them back in class.
So why don't we do that for in-school suspension for a day rather than kicking a kid out of school more often?
I think they would utilize that as much as they could. Yes, sir.
But we don't. I'm just confused by why the number of ISS is so much smaller than out-of-school suspensions for kids under 10 compared to other kids. I mean, what are they getting into major fights at school, and we're kicking them out of school for a couple days, or?
Out-of-school suspension would be addressing the safety behavior, something that's creating something for the school where the principal needs to intervene and remove it to advocate for the other students and keep the students having the difficulty safe as well.
And we don't have the resources available to provide a 1-on 2, 3, 4 instructional person for a day in order to guide a child in how they're supposed to act, keep them in school, keep them writing, keep them reading.
And that's what we do. That's what the administrators will do, and that's what keeps the OSS numbers low. But we would need more, a refocus to get a refocus room going intentionally in a school that had behaviors that would warrant it.
I think typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know you are an elementary principal in our division, so you have experience with that. typically when I was an elementary principal, and it wasn't in this division, but we didn't have the high volume or high frequency of incidents that would necessitate that you would more likely have at a middle school and a high school, where you have enough infractions that would justify having a dedicated staff member all day doing in-school suspension. However, maybe that's something we want to look at to reduce the number that are out of school. So if we want to provide that opportunity and put those resources there for dedicated staff members at the elementary level to perhaps provide that service, it's something we should explore.
Yes, sir.
Worth looking into.
I mean, a loss of day of education, based on the other data that we were looking at, this assumes these are probably IEP and 504 students. Those are students with dyslexia, ADHD.
Black and brown.
Black and brown. That a loss of a day of instruction is a significant thing for those kids.
I don't disagree. I think we need to look into that as an option, but I know why they haven't in the past.
Yes, sir.
Is because the infractions weren't as significant enough as they would be at middle and high school, where you would dedicate a dedicated staff member for that, to do that on a regular basis. But we could definitely look into that.
Okay. And then another thing that I just want to highlight and point out to everybody's point, the black student slide, we're doing something wrong this year. I mean, we're going to hit 15% if we're not careful. That's four times the enrollment of black students in our school. That's twice what we did in 2020, what we had in 2022, 23, or 21, 22.
So potentially, these slides in particular don't follow that same pattern that you can project further, because this is relative to the student group. So this says that 11% of students who were suspended were black. That actually could go up or down, whereas the total numbers are almost guaranteed to increase, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it
That's a fair
doesn't,
point.
this could actually stay the same or go down by the end of the year, where the chart, you would expect increases.
But we're still looking at a triple representation instead of a double from our
No,
historical
I understand.
data.
Just wanted to clarify that
That's right.
it might not be an upward trend for the rest of the year.
When did we cut off this data for 23, 24? Is it as of end of February?
Right, it would have been the Friday before, so end of February.
Okay.
But certainly, whatever data that you want us to provide, we can certainly come back and have a deeper conversation about more specifics.
Yeah, same breakdowns for long-term suspensions and expulsions would be good too over the past several years.
Sure.
By student group, yes, sir.
So, I have a question. Do we not archive presentations on information and how the board receives it? Because in years past, and I know because I've pushed for it, it has been broken down in all the different ways that the board has reflected on tonight. And do we not go back and look at that to see what we're doing, to be consistent on how we're putting data together and presenting it?
I can't speak for these two gentlemen, but I'm going to hazard a guess that we didn't, but we do have that information and we could access it. If the best item would be to use that as a goal, we could definitely go back, and I know we have those archives, whether they're electronic or on paper.
Sure.
Your board docs goes back to 2002, and all the attachments are still in there, so you just have to go mine it out of there. But well, again, thank you so much. I think this is a start of an important conversation. I was going to propose that the board maybe put together some thoughts in terms of the kinds of data you'd like to see, but I do like Ms. Franklin's suggestion. If we could find a previous presentation that we thought was a better example, maybe that would just be easier to direct you toward. So
I do think the first step is looking at the true data and reflecting on it and seeing how we can improve.
Sure, of course.
And I'm just gonna say, this is not a starting point. This is a stagnant point. Same old stuff, year after year, if not worse.
Yeah, if we can, I'd like to look at data going back 5 years before the pandemic so that we do have that information saying whether or not the pandemic had a major impact or not.
With maybe dropping out mask infractions, whatever year that would have been.
Sure.
We'll look for that archival data, and then what I'll do, if it's all right with the school board, I'll shoot you an email saying, hey, here's what we got so far. Here's what we're going to delve deeper into this data, get for you for our next meeting. Is there anything else you would like me to include? Is that fair? And then just get back to me individually, and we'll make sure we get it.
Good.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, next up, Karen Fisher with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America will present information for the Be Smart program. I'd like to personally actually apologize for putting you so late on the agenda tonight. We don't always think about the impact.
It is past my bedtime.
I do apologize.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about the importance of keeping our children safe. If we go back to November 7th, it's important to remember that but for the gun, those 2 students of ours would likely be alive today. We don't know how the young man got the gun. That is not public information. But we do know he didn't get it legally. And if just only whoever had possession of that gun had it locked up. If only. So you all can take action now to help make sure that people in this community who have guns, and most of them are responsible, that they lock up all their guns and make them totally inaccessible to the children who visit their homes and the children who live in their homes. You can get the word out, and that's what Be Smart is about. Encouraging people, demanding people with guns in the presence of children, where children live, where they visit, that people lock up their guns. This program was developed with education and advocacy in mind. All right. Let's see. There we go. And it's a program to bring everybody together, gun owners, non-gun owners, and as you heard people speak spontaneously tonight, the people who are gun owners, they are totally in favor of making sure that everyone is being responsible with their guns. We need to create a culture where locking up your guns is what people do. It's not questioned at all. Changing the culture is hard, but you can have a role in doing that. So firearms are the leading cause of death for children and teens in this country, teens 17 and under. And that's beyond unacceptable. And this is important for you guys, that gunfire on school grounds during the school day, before and after, up to 76% of the shooters got their guns from their home or home of relatives or friends. And it's been in the news that many of the shooters not only get their guns from home, but a few of the parents give them the guns. So Be Smart is a multifaceted
campaign. It's a public health campaign. And it's for the purpose of making sure that people do all the steps in the Be Smart program. And it's just not live presentations to groups. It's not just literature and handouts on storage practices and how to talk to children, how to talk to teens. It's also tabling at community events. We are also in the process of sending the Be Smart brochure along with a letter to all pediatricians in the community. It's everybody. Everybody has a role to play. And we are happy to consider that you might play a role too. So the core message of Be Smart is secure all the guns in your homes and vehicles. The thefts from vehicles are up significantly. Model responsible behavior around guns for people who have them. And this is the part that is missing from other programs, and that's ask. When your children, grandchildren go to other people's homes, if you have guns, how are they secured? And recognize the role that guns play in suicide, and then tell your peers. So more about securing guns in homes and vehicles. About 13 million households with children contain at least one gun. And one study showed, of course, the kids know where the guns are. And if they know where the Christmas presents are, they can find anything. Store guns locked up and inaccessible to kids is a core message. And hiding a gun in a closet, top of the closet, in a container that has a gun locked, but the ammunition is there in a box right next to the gun, is not securing the gun properly. Modeling responsible behavior. It is always the adult's responsibility to prevent unauthorized access to guns. It is never the child's responsibility or the teen's responsibility to avoid the guns. Keeping guns out of the hands of kids and teens is always the responsibility of us, the adults. And when your kids go to other houses or you have guns in your home, make it part of your normal safety conversation you have with your children and teens. And we have a lot of information about how to do that. For little kids, you have to keep the information about what they should do around guns very simple. When I was in Wilmington, Delaware, and doing a similar presentation to kids, one kid told me, he was 6 or 7, well, I saw a gun in the park and I picked it up. That kid never had a conversation with the adult about the importance of don't touch it and tell an adult right away. Asking about unsecured guns in other people's houses, or even if they have guns, is an awkward conversation. It's not something that's part of a normal give and take. But imagine how awkward it is to get that phone call about some tragic incident at someone else's home or even your own. You can email or text. You can make it part of the normal safety conversation. My son is allergic to cats. Do you have any cats? For example, that kind of conversation. And here is something stunning. About 4.6 million children live in a household with at least one loaded, unlocked gun. That household may have several guns. They all may be in a safe, but the one gun left loaded and unlocked is usually a handgun. Recognize the role of guns in suicide. This is really important. Most people who attempt suicide do not die because there is time for someone else to intervene. But with suicide attempts with a gun, there is hardly any time at all to intervene. And 90% of people who try to take their own lives die. That's a much higher fatality rate than using any other means. And it's important to note that teens, as you all know, their frontal lobe is not as well developed. They're far more impulsive. Their emotional temperature is high and lows. And something can happen that really tears apart a young person. And if there's a gun nearby, impulsively, they might use it. You're not doing you haven't done a youth risk behavior survey in a while, I understand, and I hope you do, because you will get the data on these two things with your youth risk behavior survey results. 20% had seriously considered attempting suicide among high school students, and 41% of adolescents in gun-owning households report having easy access. And then the last part is tell everybody about being smart and locking up your guns and asking about guns at other people's homes. And this is the core message of Be Smart. It would really be great if you could get this message out to every single parent in our community. You have before you information about a resolution to pass to get the word out. Perhaps you want to send a letter from the superintendent. In addition, we would like to distribute Be Smart information at tabling at school events, and we would like to raise money to provide gun locks to everyone who wants them in the community. If we do all of those things, we will take a few steps forward in making sure that our kids are safe in their homes, at other people's homes, and safe at school. Thank you. It's late. Any questions? Okay. Yes, Miss Penny.
So, are there, because wonderful information, but are there more condensed, like posters or literature that can go out?
Yes.
And you may have given it to me, I just haven't seen it.
We have posters, yes. We have flyers. They're all printable. We just need to raise the money to print them. And we will do that.
So, in my opinion, we need to send it out to parents, but we also need to put this message in our buildings for our students to see this, so that if the adults in their life don't understand, they may understand before they go into someone's home, or if they see a gun, or to have those conversations with adults around them to help them understand, lock them up, put them away so we don't know where they're at, we don't see them.
Right.
So
There is another program that's specifically for high school and middle school students, Sandy Hook Promise. And those conversations are for students specifically and student-led information. They are another great resource, especially for students, but we can supply a lot as well.
but our elementary students need to see this too.
Ms. Franklin, I'm going to go a step further than just us sending out a resolution annually. We have events at schools all year. This would be a message that we could get out there before at orientations, that we want to start having it at every school, at every grade level as reminders in many different ways, because this is important. And thank you for sharing all of this information with us tonight. When I first ran almost 8 years ago, on keeping our kids safe, and safety was my #1 priority. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate you bringing this to the forefront. And we need to make sure that our adults need to realize how responsible you need to be if you do own a gun.
Yes.
And what we can all do together to try to keep our kids safe. So thank you. And this is something I feel like we can reiterate at more than just sending home something. This needs to be a continual reminder.
Right.
Not just to bother people per se, but just to kind of keep it back here, because sometimes we say it once and it kind of,
Yeah,
Just
this
a
campaign
continual-
has to be repetitive.
yes.
And it would be great if we could enlist the resources of public relations people so that
Yes.
we could have PSAs also.
And I feel like our law enforcement would
Yes.
partner with us. I know definitely one would, and help us get that message out, because he is very big on keeping our kids safe. He ran his campaign on that, and that is his first and foremost thing in this community, is to keep our kids and all of our community members safe. So
The more
so-
community partners
Yes.
we can get involved and have this message everywhere,
right.
the better.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I believe we have resources that we can print posters and put this information up so that kids and adults entering our buildings, no matter what classroom or hallway, they will see it. They will see it.
And get it on their social
Thank-
media.
If you could reach out to me, Mrs. Fisher, at some point, we'll get together. We'll put together some plans and ideas, and if it's okay with the board, I'll bring it back to you moving forward, and then we'll go from there.
Great.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your
Thank you.
passion for this, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
And I'll just say, before anyone starts coming and telling us we shouldn't be using public resources for this, you tell that to parents of students who have lost their lives in public schools.
So Laura brought this up to have literature go home with students a couple weeks ago, and now we have this. Are we going to have something we're going to have a motion on that's actable for policy here in the next couple weeks? So we start sending material home in the school year next year? And are we also going to start putting together these posters that are going to be towards the fronts of the buildings that show
No, all over the building.
all over the buildings, sorry, at every entrance, that show people being responsible, locking a gun, putting it in a safe, those types of activities, and reminding parents, lock your guns up.
And this doesn't have to wait till next year. There's still time in this school year.
Yeah, we can start with posters, and we can send home material too, that's right.
What I was thinking was that this doesn't require a board action or a board motion. I mean, we could do a resolution and pass that as Ms. Parton said, once a year, and we pass the resolution and we show our commitment to the cause. But I think what we need to do, we can start right away. And I don't think let me get all the information from Mrs. Fisher and come up with a plan, and I'll share it with all of you. And then you weigh in and let me know what your thoughts are. But I don't think we have to wait. I don't think we have to do a motion. I think we could start doing this stuff right away.
All right, thanks.
Considering that the county and the two towns are the funding bodies of our law enforcement in our area, I think it would be great if there was some kind of joint resolution commitment between among the four of us, also to this effort. I don't know how to start it, but
We have a safety meeting where we meet with all law enforcement, and I think we need to reschedule the one that got canceled recently, so we could bring this up. Mr. Garrettson kind of coordinates that agenda. We'll put it on the agenda item get their input from the two town police departments as well as the sheriff's office.
Board, any more discussion? Okay, great. All righty, next up, school board members will have the opportunity to discuss the elementary ELA curriculum committee and review teacher survey data. This is a follow-up from the conversation we had at our last meeting. The board had directed the administration to bring back some more information, have some additional conversations. Dr. Bergen, is this you? Oh.
Yeah,
Sorry.
me, Dr. Wickham, whoever wants to talk about it, but I think, we could start off with, there was a question about the ELA curriculum and, our thoughts on the teachers and what their perspectives were. And I did share a survey that we sent out, and I think you all got it, right? If you have questions on that, maybe that's where we start the conversation. Or not, I don't know, well, if we want to go higher than that, I mean, one of the things was about a curriculum adoption, and I know those discussions that we had with a few board members that, according to the Code of Virginia, if I'm interpreting the comments right, that the school board appoints a committee to approve curriculum, and if you look at the Montgomery County School Board policy, it's done by the administrative team that puts together the committee, and it's not comprised of board members, but it's under the direction of the school board for the administration to do that. So I think at some point, I believe what we talked about was, well, let's have the school board discuss how we should do that and how that should play out.
Can I ask a question about that? Because you had mentioned it before, and I looked at the policy, and unless I'm mistaken, it read to me as though it was agnostic on the formation of the committee. Because when I read it, it might have been too quickly, that it just said that a committee was to be formed, not that it was formed by the administration or the school board. So I didn't see a contradiction between, and that kind of makes sense to me, I didn't see a contradiction between board policy and the law. It's just what I read in the board policy is that we don't specify, whereas the administrative code does specify that it is a board committee.
I think it reads, if I'm reading it right, and as a lapsed Catholic, I won't hold it against you that you're agnostic on something, but it says MCS policy 6.5-5 textbook and instructional materials, and further on down it says something, again, unless I got it wrong, the evaluation of textbooks shall be conducted by an adoption committee that is representative of the central office, supervisor staff, building administrators, classroom teachers, and parents of the students and subject fields in which the adoptions are to be made.
Right, that's just to make up the committee, but not the way in which it's formed, nor whether it's an administrative committee or a school board. That's just what the representation should look like on the actual committee. So that's why I didn't see a contradiction between, and it would make sense that you wouldn't have board policy contradict the administrative code.
We would hope. But
One would hope.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. That may be a misunderstanding on my part. I misunderstood then what our conversation was.
So, that would be my recommendation. We've got the data that suggested that there were probably two different options that the teachers were in favor of. It seems to me, it's a 5-step process. Most of it is oriented toward getting public feedback. And we just heard today that there was concern about the science textbook of difficulty. So my recommendation is, make a recommendation to the board, have the board appoint that committee, provide that information to the committee, and then just go through the remainder of those steps to go through the adoption process. That would be my recommendation.
If you're all looking at me, I'm totally fine with that. If we want to move forward, and I think what Dr. Guidry's talking about, and I don't know if you have the most updated survey results because I sent it out on Wednesday afternoon-ish, and I think we had some more results come in after that. We had about 105 responses from teachers that teach elementary language arts programs out of approximately 200. There wasn't a clear majority when asked which curriculum they would choose, and we know that this isn't the best way to do this. We were just trying to get information somewhat quickly. And there wasn't, I think when I sent it to you, there was a majority. I want to say 50% or 51% or so had selected Benchmark. The next nearest one was Amplify. And then the one after that was a Houghton Mifflin product. But when we got 105 responses, it came down, there is no majority. There's a plurality for, you could argue for Benchmark that came in at 45.7%, and Amplify came in at 26.7%. So I think, and I don't want to speak for you, Dr. Guidry, but you were saying if we're going to pick two, pick those two, let's pilot them or let people review them and go through that and make a determination from there.
Yeah, I mean, if it were me, there was a conversation before about the calendar committee, basically, people be kind of cynical about it. I think that you appoint the committee, you charge the committee, you provide the committee that information, and they go through the process rather than directing them beforehand, because otherwise there's going to be a sense in which there is a foregone conclusion from the adoption process without actually going through it and allowing the community to have its input heard. That's my suggestion.
In some of the conversations that I remember Dr. Wickham presenting some of the cases, it seemed like some of the offerings, were, they only offered certain grade levels, perhaps, offerings in only covered certain areas. And I felt like in some of the responses, it seemed like different grade levels preferred different offerings because it spoke more to them as opposed to trying to do a one-size-fits-all solution. So, I mean, as a part of the committee, I guess, are we locked in on having to do one? Is it possible to do a differentiated one across different grade levels that would better fit, or is that something that we let the committee explore and bring us back to a recommendation?
I mean, I'm fairly new to the field of education, having only been in here for 36 years, and I've not seen that happen anywhere. Linwood, where we have a K-3 curriculum for ELA and then a 5-6 different curriculum. I think that's too disjointed for the children. While it may meet the needs of the student, of the teacher's request and familiarity with, something that's more phonics and phonemic awareness driven in K1 and 2, and something that may be more content enriched in grades 3, 4, and 5. I've not seen it, so I don't want to say it can't be done, but I mean, I don't think that's appropriate, but it would satisfy what people wanted, but I don't know if that's the way that we should do it. And I think what I think is important, and y'all know this, I've been doing this long enough to know that I got trouble making myself happy, no much anybody else, right? But no matter which we pick, there's a segment of teachers that would have selected something else. And that's always going to be the case. So even if we selected, and I'm not saying this, if we made the determination that it was benchmark, that's 45%, that means the majority of staff selected something else. Right. And that was the one that got the most amount of votes. And those votes only represent half of all the teachers, so you would argue that 75% of people may or may not have wanted something else, right? And so I think we want to do what Dr. Guidry said, put a committee together, give them the charge to go very quickly, because we do have to have a plan in place. I think it's June 7th or 5th, somewhere around that time. Don't hold me to that. And then we have to have this implemented for August. We have to train people. We have to make sure they feel comfortable using these materials. And whatever they decide, though, right, when that committee comes and says, hey, here it is, we all jump on board and hit the ground running right away, if that's what the board wants.
The only thing that I would add is just, it seems like the advertising for that public comment on textbooks needs to be formalized from what the policy is. As Dr. Haas mentioned in her public comment, she kind of had to hunt around to find things. So if the policy could be adapted, edited for a 2024 audience where this would go out in elementary school newsletters or social media or whatever, because people are not going to hunt around on the website, except for probably Dr. Haas.
Point well taken, and I heard that feedback, that it's got to be in a place that's easily accessible, and if it's not, we need to make sure that is the case.
And I would just reiterate that if you look at the procedures that you're supposed to go through in the textbook adoption process, that it's not just supposed to be a decision of the teachers. One of the steps is that the procedures to ensure appropriate consideration of citizen comments and observations. And so the citizens' feedback is central to that process. So that would be the one caveat. I think we need to move quickly, but in addition to having them be informed of what it is, that we're actually considering their input in that process so that in the end, it is a collective decision.
Agreed. We definitely don't want to do anything because it's a purely perfunctory matter, right? We want to make sure if we're asking for input. And with the survey, I listened to people. Some people had some harsh comments. I appreciate it. There was concern about whether they would be truthful or not for fear that, there may be some feedback that would be negative towards them. But, from what I read, they felt pretty liberal about telling me what they thought about it, which I appreciate, honestly. And otherwise, we're just, we're doing things for the sake of doing them, not really getting feedback, and that's not successful for any of us. I will ask, if you don't mind, so the establishment of the committee is job number one, and we got to get that rolling really quickly. How do y'all want me to do that, or you want to do that, or?
I would assume we would handle that like other committees where you would make a recommendation to us and we would approve that, right?
Can we work as quickly as bring something to the retreat? Because we have to have something approved by June. It's March 5th, is it today?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, sure.
I'll try to bring something to y'all on Saturday to look at and see if you're okay with it. And if anyone has suggestions on people you think should be on it, let me know. Is that fair?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Sounds good.
Thank you all.
Great. Any other discussion, board? Okay.
Didn't we amend the agenda to include some friendly thing?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, I had an asterisk on that one. I didn't want to skip it, but yeah, we did amend the agenda to have a discussion about the 45-day SOL program, whatever you want to call it, that started this week at some of the schools. So I think there were some board members who had questions and comments about that.
Yeah, so I just have a few questions because I know that there was some confusion, and I'm assuming that there was a point person in the central office on this program. Is it possible just to ask that whoever that point person is just a few procedural questions? I know that the administration is not reinventing the wheel and with this, and I'm not asking for a rationale for it, but I have just a few procedural questions.
Yeah, totally fine. And I would recommend that that's Dr. Wickham.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much. As you probably know, there was some
45-day plans were introduced. I'd say for last 4 or 5 years, we've had multiple principals doing it. Not a requirement, but something from the VDOE that the VDOE has offered as a strategy, if you will, to not so much prepare for SOL testing, but to kind of make sure that you're implementing spiral review over the last quarter as you're going to SOL testing, because children and teachers are stressed out about trying to cover it. So it's a strategy that's been recommended by the VDOE now for over a decade. So a number of principals have been doing it each year around February or March. It's something that has either been reviewed with typically with elementary principals. This year it was reviewed with all principals as something they could consider to do to kind of take the stress off of testing.
Is there more than one middle school that is doing this 45-day review? Because the suggestion to me was that it was just one school, but then I heard confusing information to suggest that maybe it wasn't just one middle school that was doing it this year. Is it more than one?
Because it wasn't required, we didn't ask principals to report back to us who was doing it. It was something that was a strategy that folks could try. I am aware of a couple of elementary principals that are doing it, but I'm not sure which middle schools are doing it. Perhaps Mr. Simpson, do you know which middle schools are doing a 45-day plan in addition to BMS? Okay, so it sounds like maybe all of them are going to try it, but it sounds like it's going to be different at each building.
Okay, that's really helpful because I got some contradictory information that it was not across the division, it was just one school. So the other question I had for you is just to get your reassurance, because I think one of the questions was that I know during, say, Bruin Block that gifted students have their pull-out then, and there are critical services, instructional services that are provided during that time. So if a parent in our community has a child that comes home and said, I'm not going to have any more gifted pull-out for the rest of the year because they're doing this 45-day review. Your message to the community is that somewhere in the chain of command that somebody has misunderstood the instructions from the administration, that those children should still be getting the IEP or gifted services, and that there's some miscommunication or somebody is not following the administration's directions. Is that fair to say?
So I personally spoke to the principal about this to ask that question, and I was reassured that if students who are identified as gifted are meeting with their GRT at that time, for example, or if they're getting enrichment opportunities with their GRT, that would continue, and that if students have an IEP and it says that during that time they're supposed to be meeting with their special education teacher, for example, that would continue. Under the law, it has to, if it's in their IEP.
Right. Okay, so we have confidence that those services will still be delivered during this 45-day review?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I don't know if anybody else has any questions, but that was really helpful. Thank you.
I would go one step further, that if they're not, reach out to your teacher or the principal or myself directly, because that is our expectation. There was no directive that you have to do this across the division, and that's my understanding.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I had a question. So this is being rolled out. Was there prior warning about this, or was this last minute that it was told to the teachers and students? I know I've had feedback from parents, teachers, and students that are concerned about that they use this time to get work done for school so that they're able to go to sports, they're able to go to their clubs, they're able to do everything and still get to bed on time at a reasonable time. Providing something like this where you take away an open block where they're able to freely work without advanced warning is a real hit to their schedule, and they're looking forward to actually planning out their days and being responsible. If you could speak to that for...
I can. I don't know how it was rolled out at this school. Like I said, at a principals meeting, we went through the plan. There's a template from the VDOE. We talked about what that meant, and essentially it's about doing a spiral review as you lead up to SOL testing again. So it's not trying to cram in information at the last minute, but I can't speak to how it was rolled out at individual schools. There were no real guidelines about this is how you do it. It was more, this is what the plan is for, this is why you do it, to just alleviate stress and make sure that any review is happening is really based on learning, engaging activities, and just not, we call it skill drill and kill at the last minute, because that doesn't support learning.
Right. And then the other question is why is this not already built into the standard curriculums of teachers? I mean, I think most teachers do actually build this type of activity into their standard curriculum, that they have spirals towards the end of the year where they're prepping their students for testing purposes.
I imagine for many teachers it is. What our administrators of curriculum did, like our math administrator, for example, she went through and she pulled all of the most heavily tested SOL concepts. So all of the SOLs that are on a blueprint that are going to be tested the most, she went through, pulled resources to support teachers. All the content area administrators did the same thing. They went through grade level by grade level, SOL test by SOL test to simplify, make it easier for teachers to say, if you're going to put in extra time for spiral review, here are those concepts that are going to be most heavily tested. So this is your biggest bang for your buck.
Yeah, so that makes sense, but this is going into their enrichment times. That's not the standard classroom time, correct?
So it can be, depending upon how it's rolled out. So IE time is intervention enrichment time. So if I'm getting enrichment, then likely I don't need the intervention in preparation. But for those students who need the extra support, there were suggestions, ideas that were given to say, hey, you could try this or you could do that, but here are the resources, materials, and the standards that are going to be most heavily tested.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Sutton, can I ask one follow-up question? Are students receiving a grade for the work that's done during that time? Because I heard something along those lines. Is that accurate?
That I can't speak to. I imagine that's really up to each individual school. There was no recommendation to give a grade on this work. So that I can't speak to for each school.
Okay, because that was one of the reasons why I also was asking about the students who are receiving services during that time, that if there's a grade for the work that's done during their period, but that period is being used for them to get for their IEP or their gifted services, then that would be a problem.
Absolutely.
So you're going to also communicate to the principals that no student should be put in that situation.
So like we said, if a student has an IEP or if a student is getting gifted services at that time, if there's something going on at that time that they're supposed to have, then absolutely that should not change. And we can certainly follow up with that.
Yeah, I would appreciate if you could ensure that the principals know that no student should be put in that situation during this 45-day review. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, board, any other questions? Great. All right. Next up is unfinished business. Are there any items of unfinished business? Seeing none. On to new business. Are there any items of new business?
So I don't know if it's new business, old business, or just a question. So with Mrs. Woodsetzer being moved to Blacksburg High School, is there another person who is helping out with equity?
We don't have a sub in the equity department because I don't know of anyone that has the skills that we could say, hey, we need you to sub here right now. We'd be more than willing to do that if we had somebody. I've been working closely with Stacy though, Stacy Wright, I'm sorry. And if there's anything that they need, we will definitely try to get it to them. Or Ms. Franklin, if you know of someone that is available that could sub in that capacity, because the problem is there's not 10 people waiting down the door that have that ability to do that and walk right into it. Or Ms. Woodsetzer, I know we talk regularly. If there's someone that you know that we could get there, we would definitely do that, because I do recognize that not only is Ms. Wright doing a heavy lift right now, but so is Ms. Woodsetzer. And we kind of talk regularly. We talked today about some things we could do to help ease that burden a little bit.
Okay, well, as long as we understand, there needs to be help, or things will start to fall
I agree.
apart. Thank you.
One thing Ms. Woodsetzer does very well is communicate very effectively, especially with me. And I appreciate it.
Board, any other items of new business? Or old business, or if you're unsure of business. Okay, great. Up to announcements and information. Are there any announcements?
I have an announcement. Sorry. I'm sorry, Penny. I have an announcement that's a little more personal in nature. It's not related to my work on the board or my professional life, but in my free time, I've been working to help establish an Imagination Library program in Montgomery County for any of you who are familiar with Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. It's gone incredibly well, thanks to support from the Mount Tabor Ruritan Club and especially Wendy Baldwin, who's the executive director. We got our 501c3 status like right at the end of the year. So fundraising began January 1. As of the end of February, we were able to start enrolling children, which is incredible that we raised that much money in that amount of time. Much more money to be raised. But as of right now, enrollments are about 390, and that's with very little messaging out, a very soft rollout. Christiansburg enrollments are about 2-to-1 to Blacksburg, just so that you all know that. Good. But this program provides free books for any enrolled child, 1 per month from birth to age 5, to help develop pre-literacy skills before they start school, how to hold a book, how to sit quietly and listen, to be excited about opening a book, how to turn a page, because some families don't have printed material at home. Some students need a little extra help, and some children, and some are just excited or to help build that excitement about books. I've talked to Dr. Bragan about this a lot, and he's always been very, very supportive, but I was just very excited, and I wanted to share in the meeting, so thank you. Thanks, Laura.
Laura, I'm not sure where that free time you're talking about comes from. I'd like to get some of that, but super proud of the work that you're doing there. That's outstanding. Board, any other announcements?
Yeah, great job with that. And also, I've been updating on the SB 283 bill with the Senate for free lunches for all students. That actually went to the House, got recommended to the Education Committee, and passed out of the Education Committee, and passed in the House with some amendments with 84 yeas and 14 nays. And then went back to the Senate and passed 39-1, so that should be headed on to the governor's office here shortly. So hopefully next year we'll be providing free lunch and free breakfast to all students in Virginia.
We'd probably get more from our vendors because they would have more participation.
Okay, board. Great updates tonight. Upcoming school board meetings, you can see in our agenda. Upcoming ones, got a retreat this weekend. Looking forward to that. And then our next.
Question about parking.
Yeah, there's some information.
So, yeah, you can park in the self-parking lot, and they're going to give us a little card that you can scan on your way out to take care of parking.
Great. All right. Next up, closed session. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia to discuss 1 student matter and 3 personnel matters?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Guitry and a second by Dr. Roundtree. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin? Dr. Guitry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
favor.
Motion carries. We are in closed session.